I found out that a coworker in the same position, with the same education, experience, workload, etc., is making almost twice what I make. Story: I began working at a research facility last April as an administrative assistant making $11 an hour. I was promoted to a position as a clinical research assistant in August of 2016 at 14 an hour, with promise that in a year I would have the opportunity to move up into a research coordinator position and receive a raise. Meanwhile, I received my bachelor's degree in December 2016. Fast forward to 1 year later, I have been given all of the responsibilities of not one, but two coordinators, as we are very understaffed. I am working overtime each week to tackle my work. I have yet to receive a raise. At my quarterly review 2 months ago, I was told that corporate was not approving any raises at this time, and that maybe after August or so, our highest revenue season, I can expect a pay raise. Still no title change to coordinator, despite having the work of a coordinator and being referred to as one in all company communication. So, yesterday my coworker confused in me that she makes $24 an hour. She was hired 6 months after I was and, like me, had relevant experience. But no coordinator experience. We both have bachelor's degrees. We work the same position with the same job duties. I make $14 an hour. So, I guess the advice I'm looking for is how to approach my boss about this outrageous difference in pay and why I'm not being fairly compensated. My boss is very big on not disclosing pay with fellow employees, and I understand this completely. However, I did not ask my coworker how much she makes. She simply told me, and now I cannot unknow. I have never had to discuss wages with my employer, and this may not even be the best subreddit to ask for help on this in, but I will take all of the advice I can get, TLDR. Already knowing I was underpaid, and waiting for the opportunity to discuss a pay raise with my boss. I found out that a coworker in the same position with the same credentials is making almost twice what I make. Relevant comments, commenter 1. And don't forget that you don't know your coworker is telling you the truth. Run a job search to see how much the market rate for your role is. But your company sounds pretty bad. Perhaps time to go anyway, you deserve better. Reply: the market rate in my area is 23 to 25 an hour. Commenter 2. Looks like time for a new job working for a great company, and a big pay rise. Commenter 3. I was told that corporate was not approving any raises at this time, and that is how you know it is time to look for a new job. You are doing the work of two coordinators, have skilled up with a new degree, are working in a place that is understaffed, and where it is a very big deal from your boss for his employees to not know how much he is screwing them over. None of these are good signs. You can always discuss pay with coworkers, and you should be able to get pay commensurate with the work you are doing for the company. The place to get that, however, will be at a new company, since your current one has both told and shown you that you shouldn't expect that raise to come from them. Commenter 4. Hiring manager checking in. Your boss is a terrible manager. They should have structured a move up for you in stages according to your qualifications and your responsibility and actually acted on it. Promises are smoke. If your boss doesn't have the sway to make good on old promises, why would you think saying something now would change that? The number one way to lose a good employee is to be a bad manager. You have a bad manager. I cannot underscore this enough. A bad manager will let you linger underpaid and blame HR higher-ups for their incompetence in securing you a raise promotion. My number one job as a manager is making sure my people are well compensated and have the resources they need to do their jobs. It's my job to deflect the negative, remove obstacles, and keep my people productive. I'm not always successful, but I always try. At a minimum, your boss should be actively doing all of these things for you. This isn't an HR issue because your terrible boss never promoted you. If had the same titles and such different pay, corporate HR would need to mitigate the situation because that is potential labor law issues. Despite having the same duties, your different job titles make it so you can be in different pay ranges without it being a parity issue. My advice: look for another job. On your way out, thank everyone for the opportunity. Update: for those of you who read my original post, I just wanted to update. Everyone was so encouraging and supportive. I really did not expect it after making my post. I met with my boss in order to inform her that I needed a raise. She told me she would submit a pay raise request. 1 week later, she called me into her office. She absolutely berated me for thinking I could move into the coordinator position for which I was already doing the work, and complained about my work performance. Last month I had an evaluation and received very high praise for my performance, and there has not ever been complaints about my performance in the past. All in all, I assume she was making excuses not to increase my pay. Fast forward a bit, and I received a text from the wife of one of my boyfriend's friends offering me a job at a rehab facility. I interviewed for the job, and they offered me the position at $20 an hour, $6 more an hour than my current job. In the meantime, my boss called me into her office again and informed me that I was very fortunate, as corporate had approved my pay increase. She stated that she truly shot for the stars when submitting my new pay, and that corporate had gone above and beyond anything she ever thought I would receive. $17 an hour, still $7 less than my coworker. I accepted the new job and put in my 2 weeks' notice. My boss was absolutely sideswept. She could not believe that I was quitting. She waited a day and called me into her office yet again and asked me what they were offering me that was so great that I would choose to leave. I told her $20 an hour. She said, "If I can offer you that, will you stay?" Wow. And here I thought $17 was above and beyond what they could ever offer me. I told her I would think about it. In the meantime, I contacted my new employer and informed them that my current employer was offering to match their offer to keep me, and got an even bigger offer from them. I start next Monday. Thank you for all your support and advice. I can't wait to start my new job. Final comments, commenter 1. Unfortunately, this happens all the time. If you don't speak up, good luck. Reply, thank you. I don't think I could have done it without all the people here encouraging me to. Stories number 2. I think my boyfriend is lying about being in medical school. I 26F have been dating Sam 31M for about 4 months now. We met online and he told me he was going to be a doctor. The first 2 months were fine, but the last 2 months I have started to feel like he hasn't been honest about several aspects of his life. The biggest being him in medical school. He used to live overseas and was in medical school there for a short time. I'm pretty sure this is true because I've seen pictures. That was about 5 years ago. The school that he says he goes to is fairly prestigious, and I have another friend, Jason, who graduated with a medical degree from the same school. Jason has told me how difficult the program was, and how he never had time for anything besides studying. Jason also said that nobody in his program worked. Sam works 40 hours a week in an office, and I've never once seen him study. He always seems to have a completely open schedule to hang out all the time, which I thought was odd. I asked him why he never is studying, and he said he doesn't need to. I was always a good test taker and never studied a lot in college, but I still feel like medical school is a whole different ballgame. I've spent a lot of time at Sam's house and have never seen a single document suggesting he was in school, textbooks, assignments, nothing. He also has let me use both of his computers, and I've never seen anything on his history or anything suggesting anything to do with school. I don't know about you guys, but when I was in school I had papers all over my house and my computer always had school stuff on it. A few weeks ago we were at dinner, and I can't remember how this was brought up, but he mentioned that the human ear has 30-something bones in it. I know from high school biology that it has 3 bones, and I said he was wrong. He said something to the effect of, "I'm a medical student? How are you going to tell me I'm wrong?" So I Googled it right in front of him and showed him that I was correct, and he seemed mad. I then asked him how many bones were in the human body, and he was wrong again. I feel like this is pretty basic stuff a medical student would know, right? Even I know that. So this week I've been feeling suspicious, so I decided to prod. I asked him if I could come sit in on one of his classes, and he said his school doesn't do that. Fine. I asked if we could meet up on campus for lunch, and he said I couldn't come because you need a student ID to get on campus due to COVID. Fine. I asked to see his student ID, and he said he lost it. Then I asked him if he could send me a selfie of him in his hospital uniform, and he said he doesn't like the way he looks in a white coat. He sends me other selfies all the time. I feel like at this point he's lying, but some of my friends say I'm being paranoid. If he is lying, how should I prove it? Edit, he's not actually my boyfriend, he's just someone I've been seeing frequently. I just wrote that for the ease of the title, edit. Felt it was worth noting that these past 6 weeks have been summer vacation, so he hasn't needed to be in class. He said he would get a new student ID when classes start. Relevant comments, commenter 1 honey. You need to walk away. The red flags are waving in the breeze. Loudly. If he will lie about this, there is no limit to what we will lie about. Does he even work where he says he does? Reply, I've been to his office job and met his coworkers. So yes, I know he works 40 hours in an office. Commenter 2, let me tell you this from the perspective of someone who caught a liar. Once you catch them in a lie this big, the trust is just gone. You're always going to have it in the back of your mind that he's lying, even when he's telling the truth. Lying about being in medical school is a big lie. Commenter 3, of course he's lying, of course he is. Wow, That is all kinds of manipulation and crazy shit. You already know this, don't you? I'm trying to be kind, but why haven't you called him out really? Why on earth would you buy into this deceit? I'm guessing you are afraid that you'd find out the truth and then be confronted with whether or not you need to end the relationship, and you don't want to end the relationship. I get it, but this is so ridiculous that I'm worried for you. He has to have a student ID. Does he have a parking sticker? I'm guessing not, and he's going to give you some stupid excuse as to why not. Your friends say you're being paranoid? Lol, are they really friends? Nope, and absolutely not. If this guy is in medical school, then I'm not an ER nurse, granted, retired. A 10-year-old knows how many bones are in the human ear. Don't minimize your suspicions. You are right. You are smart. He is lying. I'm not even buying the overseas medical school story based on his knowledge of the human body. He sounds manipulative. Please be careful. Reply. The first month we dated, I only saw him 2 or 3 times. And the last month has been summer vacation. So no classes, I didn't really think about it. I only started really getting suspicious when we had the conversation about ear bones, which was 3 weeks ago. Now I've looked back and realized how suspicious it all sounds. Commenter 4. It isn't even that suspicious. It's just lying. And he gets angry when you proved him wrong? Girl, you've only been dating this lunatic for a short time. Trust me, he's not in any prestigious medical school. He's not in any medical school. I doubt he's even in college given the lack of any supportive evidence. If he's lying about this, I know he is. What else is he lying about? You have to have a completed bachelor's degree, usually in the sciences at an accredited university, and then pass the MCAT to be considered for med school. And that's not even a guarantee. I have a couple of MD friends. Sent one a screenshot and she laughed so hard sorry, said if he's telling the truth. She doesn't want him working on her patients. He's lying. I'm sorry you're going through this, but better to find out the truth. There's a couple ways. Ask him what he got on his MCAT medical college admissions test. It is required for enrollment into any accredited medical school. It does include a lot of science questions on it. So that is why most doctors have a bachelor's in the science arena. Ask him what classes he's taking. It should be a lot of anatomy. Biology, chemistry, histology, most first years study on average 4 to 8 hours a day. My friend is a biology and chemistry genius, and she studied 3 to 4 hours daily her first year. It got worse the second year. Medicine is one of the hardest degrees on the world. If it was that easy, we'd all be MDs. I'm so sorry you're going through this, but better to know the truth. Listen to your gut. Not for nothing, but my MD friend also mentioned that someone who goes to these extremes doesn't just have low self-esteem. Usually when they're caught, they play the I have low self-esteem, or I just wanted you to like me, or I was in medical school, and I was planning on returning. It's a little scarier than that, so be careful. Sometimes these people really suffer from significant mental illness. You've only dated him for 4 months, and they are quite good at hiding it. Please be careful. Good luck update. So, the response was overwhelming, and I'm glad I got confirmation on my suspicions because I felt like I was going crazy. I broke up with him over FaceTime and didn't tell him the real reason. Just gave a vague explanation about not being ready to date anybody. There are other things in addition to my post that I'm pretty sure he was also lying about. I didn't bring any of his lies up because honestly I feel slightly scared of a person who would lie about things like that. He didn't take it very well, and sent me a barrage of texts trying to guilt trip me, and also was borderline harassing me into meeting up with him. Apparently he bought me a present and was trying to force me to take it. Overall, just really gaslighty and manipulative. I eventually just stopped responding, and I haven't heard anything in a few days. Hopefully never have to see or speak to him again. Thanks to you all for your responses. Going forward, I'll be a lot more cautious about who I believe. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I didn't see your original post, but I'm an actual medical student, and that guy is 100% lying about being in medical school. You have next to no free time outside of class and studying. There is no way the dude is working 40 hours and is a good test taker to get through school. It's just not possible. The level of detail and volume of work is so massive that it requires daily practice. Sounds like the guy was in school, flunked out, and hasn't accepted it yet. Commenter 2 Elmao same, I'm a mess student and just saw both of her posts. Not a chance in hell that dude was working 40 hours a week and attending. Stories number 3. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my roommate's vet bill after his dog ate my food? Last month, my roommate Evan and I had a huge argument that's still affecting the vibe in our apartment. We've been living together for about a year and mostly get along. I do most of the cooking because I enjoy it, and I'm careful about labeling my stuff in the fridge since Evan's dog. Milo has a bad habit of getting into food if left out. One night, I made a big pot of chicken Alfredo because I was planning to meal prep for the week. I left it cooling on the counter for maybe 15 minutes while I took a shower. When I came back, the pot was on the floor, and Milo was licking what was left. He'd eaten a huge amount, I immediately told Evan, and we both panicked because dogs shouldn't eat creamy, garlicky food. He rushed Milo to the emergency vet while I cleaned up the mess. The next day, Milo was fine, but Evan was furious. The vet bill came to around $700, and he told me I should pay at least half because it was my food that poisoned his dog. I told him I was sorry Milo got sick, but it wasn't my fault that his dog got into something left on the counter. I've told him multiple times to keep Milo away from the kitchen, and he even admitted the dog has jumped up and stolen food before. He insists that I should have known better, and that I was careless for leaving food unattended. I pointed out that normal adults don't expect to have to guard their dinner like it's treasure, and it's not my responsibility to baby-proof the apartment against his dog. He hasn't spoken much to me since, and he's been making passive-aggressive comments about people who don't take responsibility for their actions. Now I feel a little guilty because I do care about Milo, but I don't think I should pay for something I didn't cause. Still, part of me wonders if I should just pay half to make peace, since we still have several months left on the lease and the tension is uncomfortable. TLDR, my roommate's dog ate my chicken Alfredo, got sick and needed a $700 vet visit. He wants me to pay half because it was my food that made the dog sick. But I think it's his responsibility to control his pet. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay? Commenter 1. Evan should buy you dinner and control his dog. Commenter 2. His dog, his responsibility, end of story. You didn't leave the food on the floor by his doggy bed. You left it on a kitchen counter, and he has failed to train his dog not to jump up and steal. Commenter 3. Why is the dog not trained? Any of my dogs would be sitting next to the counter and drooling, is true, but would never ever consider jumping on the counter and eating it all. He should compensate for all the food lost and time wasted, not ask for money. Commenter 4. Look, I have a boxer who is a notorious counter surfer. I've tried, for 7-1-2 years, which is how old she is, to train it out of her. I have tried everything, even professional trainers. Nothing works. However, this is my problem to deal with. If she jumped up and ate my roommate's food, I'd overly apologize and ask if I could compensate them for the groceries. I sure as hell wouldn't charge them for the vet bill that was caused by my untrained dog getting into something she shouldn't have. NTJ, your roommate needs to take responsibility for his untrained animal. It's not your fault that the dog jumped up and ate your dinner. Don't give in. Stories number 4. My nail tech warned me about my friend. I 29F and my 33F friend, let's call her Brittany. We became friends at work over the past 3 years. She recently had a baby and we were doing everything together. We started going to the same nail tech that our other friends started going to, and she's amazing. My nail tech is one of the friends that will call you out on BS. She will tell you that color won't look good on your skin tone, but will give you all the love and support when you need it. Recently, Brittany got a different job but in the same company, so I don't see her as often. She's busy with her baby, so I make sure not to bother her. But we were still catching up on weekends. We would go and get our nails done around the same time, so we would see each other. But recently, my nail tech warned me about distancing myself away from Brittany. I was so shocked that I didn't even ask what she could have said because I know that it would have messed with my mental health. She knew I was caught off guard, and what did she hear that was so bad? My nail tech said, sometimes you need to take a break from friends, and that's okay. But right now, I wouldn't want to be friends with her. I'm just warning you. I closed my door with her for a while, because I was so shook at this comment from a very reliable source, until my other friends from work started asking why I wasn't talking to Brittany, and if I was still around work, or if I had something going on. But she never messaged me during this. My mom recently had cancer surgery, and a couple weeks after I had surgery on my ankle due to a freak accident, I've been home for over a month. She has never texted me or reached out even though she knows. I was on the mend. Am I the asshole for not reaching out and closing myself off until I am ready? Or is she really a bad friend? Commenter 1. I think it speaks volumes that other people are coming to you about Brittany's concern about your friendship. Commenter 2.ngl, that nail tech probably picked up on something real. People like that catch vibes fast. If she hasn't checked in after everything you've been through, that says a lot already. Sometimes the silence tells you more than the words ever could. Commenter 3. Bite the bullet and ask the tech what your friend did. At least find out if it's something that can cause harm to you, your job, or your family. Commenter 4. I remember getting my eyebrows done, and as you do, we started chatting. I told her about this one friend, and she suddenly stopped, looked at me and said, "That woman is not your friend." It sent chills down my spine because deep down, I already knew, but I didn't have the guts to end the friendship. Boy, did I learn. Sometimes the universe sends messages through strangers. It's up to us to listen or at least brace ourselves for the shit that's about to go down. Stories number 5. My friend slept with my crush and then got mad that I still liked him. We met him at the same time and she kept calling him gross and ugly. I thought he was cute, but I was too shy to do anything. We all hung out a few times and literally the same night I started flirting with him, she suddenly didn't think he was gross anymore. He asked her about me and told her that he thought I was cute. She told him to not even bother with me because I thought he was ugly. No, I didn't. Then they slept together a few times, but she kept calling him gross and ugly for some reason. A little while later, I went to his house to watch a movie, and it felt like we were just meant to be TBH. We started a relationship and she got mad. She had 2 other guys she actually seemed to like, but she needed him to like her as well. After 2-ish months, she got into a relationship and said we could all finally be friends since she wasn't available anymore. That I could finally feel safe in my relationship since he had to let her go. Then she told me he tried to cheat on me with her. I normally trust friends first, but the day he cheated, he was with me. Commenter 1. You don't need someone like that in your life. Reply. I still miss her sometimes, but she is out of my life. W. Commenter 2. She didn't want him, she just didn't want you to have him. I swear, some people only chase validation. It's not about the person, it's about being wanted. Sounds like she was playing a weird competition game in her head that OP never signed up for. Reply. That's what I think. She thought he was so gross and ugly until I showed the slightest sign of liking him. Later, she also tried to sleep with his friend because I talked to him. Because I wanted to get to know my new boyfriend's friend. She also called that guy ugly. BTW. Commenter 3. I don't think that's your friend at all. Sounds like she really envies you. TBH. Reply. She's not a friend anymore, luckily, but it was so hard to let go. She was basically my whole world for a few months. Commenter 4. Sounds like she wants what you have and torpedo anything you get. I'm getting single white female vibes. Reply. She needed everyone to love her the most, and she couldn't really handle someone liking me more. Commenter 4. Reply. If she keeps acting like this, no one is going to love her. People will start to see right through her. Reply. Funnily enough, everyone left her, but they were all bullies and she never did anything wrong. Stories number 6. My 23F boyfriend, 26. M thinks I'm embarrassed of him. And he's kind of right. My boyfriend of 10 months is upset that I won't introduce him to my friends. There are a couple reasons for this. First, I don't have a defined friend group. Most of my friends live in different states or countries. The closest ones are an hour away. And they're very busy. Med school, weekend shifts, etc. My point is that seeing my friends is precious one-on-one time. The only group events I attend are my ex's friends' reunions. They invite me, but they're not my friends. So in general, my SOs don't meet my friends, because meeting them is super important to my boyfriend. I've realized I am kind of embarrassed by him. I thought he was cute and fun when I met him, but over the last 10 months he got comfortable and gained 50 pounds. It's not a medical condition. It's a bad diet of no exercise and constant fast food. He gets too tired to even have missionary sex. He went shopping recently for a rave, and now wears his rave clothes constantly because they're the only things that actually fit him. These are things like black shorts with neon stripes. A friend of his laughed when she saw him and Snapchatted him, looking like a gangster. He also picked up smoking behind my back, and grew from a social smoker to several a day. He smells and I hate it. Overall, if I met him now, I would never consider dating him. But I'm in love with him. I just don't want to introduce him until he's back to his early relationship self. Am I being awful? On his side, he has a very defined friend group that all live in the same city and throw group events constantly. It's been easy for him to include me, and we hang out with them often. TLDR. I haven't introduced my boyfriend to my friends, partly because I rarely see them, and partly because he's become really unattractive. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. He probably didn't really change. He was probably putting on a good show when you met him. And this is who he thinks he wants to be. Reply. I know he played baseball from elementary school through high school, and last year played a lot of tennis and disc golf with his friends. This seems like such a drastic change that I can't imagine it's his true form. He said he's unhappy with his weight, but admittedly hasn't made any efforts to fix it. Commenter 2. You can play baseball and disc golf and still be an obese smoker. Reply, you can, but he wasn't. At the start of our relationship, he was reasonably in shape and only occasionally smoked at parties. At some point, he started smoking when I wasn't around. And now he's a full-blown smoker. Commenter 3. How does one gain 50 lbs in 10 months? Reply, he's tall. So most of the changes aren't very noticeable on him. He also quit and restarted a medication and blamed some of the weight gain on that. But looking back, it had little to do with it. I think he eats roughly 2,400 edit. People have noted that this guess is too low calories a day, which, with his height, was probably a good amount when he played sports in high school and college, but is too high now. Commenter 4. Actually, 2,400 calories day should have a taller man losing weight. 2,500 calories is considered maintenance for most men. Either he is eating that many calories, and should therefore go to a doctor to figure out what's going on, or he's eating more like 3,500. Reply, that's interesting. I came up with that number by adding up a usual dinner for him at about 1,400 calories, Taco Bell quesadilla, bean burrito, other entree, and a soda, and then guessing that he eats another 1,000 for lunch. But maybe I'm missing some items. Or he does have a medical issue. I'll talk to him about that. Commenter 5. How do you know it isn't related to the med? Some meds really do cause you to pack on the pounds. Have you expressed concern about his weight and eating habits? Reply, because he's been on the med for years, including when he was fit, and he was only off of it for about a month, 6 months ago. Some of the weight gain might be related to the med, but considering he's gained weight since then, I don't think it was a significant factor. Commenter 6. If you are embarrassed of him and don't like the way he looks or dresses, or that he smokes, or how he smells, and wouldn't consider dating him, why haven't you done anything about it or left? I love him, is a shit answer. If you loved him, why would you let him have come to this? Reply, I didn't arrive here willingly. I've downloaded MFP on his phone, and bet that the person who logged the fewest days buys date night. I've asked for hikes for my birthday and Valentine's presents. I get him to go on walks with me, but he gets impatient after half a mile. I'm not a great cook or willing to spend a lot on ingredients, so it's difficult to explain why he should cook and season chicken for a mediocre salad instead of go to McDonald's drive-thru. If I could do anything to stop his cigarette cravings, I would, but I can't. The clothes are a recent development, and I'm guessing he'll buy better-fitting clothes soon. But for now he says he doesn't see the need to look nice on casual days. He normally dresses fairly well. Update. So I told him I was worried about his unhealthy habits and asked if he was depressed. He said he wasn't sure, but he did hate his job. This surprised me, because he excelled at school and enjoyed discussing related topics, but I guess actual programming was burning him out. He also said he was just picking a fight about my friends out of stress. I suggested that he switch to the business side of things, and after some exploring he seemed interested. He soon after bought new clothes, so thankful, switched to vaping, so regretful, and started a job hunt. I let him focus on applying, but tried to passively inspire him by getting into shape myself. He eventually became a manager at a game company and was way happier. But I just got more frustrated. I had never really dieted before, but learned it's actually pretty easy if you're disciplined about logging calories. I dropped from a 22 BMI to a 19 BMI without exercising, then threw in some weights, thanks. Meanwhile, he quit his job after getting some interviews, but did nothing except grow his nicotine addiction, because he could now smoke indoors with his vape. Then he got a job, and Snapchatted all his coworker happy hours and new food perks. I know starting can be hard, but he kept moving the goalposts for getting started. After quitting old job, after interviews, after new job probation period, a couple weeks ago, I invited him to a friend's musical. We were running a little late, but he said he needed to use my bathroom, and set off the fire alarm. Because he was vaping, I blew up. I was so furious he planned to meet new people and then subject them to that awful smell for the next 3 hours. So I finally gave him the ultimatum that you guys suggested 4 months ago. It seems like it worked. He replaced his vape with nicotine gum, bought an elliptical, cut out soda, and started cooking more. I hope it all sticks, but if it doesn't, I'll be fine. I've grown more confident and a lot hotter since I last posted. TLDR, finally gave boyfriend ultimatum suggested last time. Kids, don't smoke. Even if you swear you're not gonna do it that much, Just once in a while when you're drunk at a party, like my boyfriend did. Edit. To address some of the comments, I admire a lot of things about my boyfriend. He's smart and hardworking and graduated at the top of his class. He shares my sense of humor and many of my interests. He's very willing to listen and communicate. He's a great compliment to my personality and I have a blast hanging out with him. I absolutely love him and want him to be happy. That just wasn't the point of the original post or the update. I don't mean to make my boyfriend sound awful or to demean him. I don't care if he ever has a six-pack. I just want him to be the average weight guy he was when we started dating. Relevant comments. IOP gives me detail about her ultimatum. I mean, that was the point of the ultimatum. If he was happy, I wanted to break up so that we could pursue our individual lives. I haven't actually told him to do anything. I've only said that I'm unhappy with his intense weight gain and smoking. The way he fixes those things are up to him, including breaking up with me if he wants. Stories number 7. I was away from home for 3 weeks every month at least when they were kids. It wasn't a big deal. They turned out fine. We had my son's birthday party recently. It was really just my parents, in-laws and neighbors. Nothing crazy. Typical toddler birthday stuff at the house. When I was hanging outside watching my son play and enjoying the weather, I overheard my dad talking to my neighbor. Her husband, also at the party, recently got a job where he has to travel a lot, and it's been hard on them. I heard my dad say something to her to the effect of, "I was away from home for 3 weeks every month for work. At least, when they were kids. It wasn't a big deal. They turned out fine." I instantly felt this deep sadness. Yeah, I did turn out okay in a lot of ways. I have a wife and kid I absolutely adore. Fulfilling hobbies. A well-paying job that is pretty flexible with good benefits. I own a home. I'm fit and healthy, etc. Super thankful for that. And I wouldn't have it without my parents sacrificing for me. I am quite privileged. But I do remember my dad always being gone all the time as a kid, and my mom was usually working or taking care of my grandparents. So I mostly spent time with my friends' families, or with my grandmother who was an immigrant, and unmarried without much of a community in our southern town, which was kind of isolating in its own way. I love my parents, but I am not emotionally close to them at all, and we have a tumultuous relationship. They suck at communicating anything to me and my siblings, and I cannot talk to them about anything serious without them shutting it down. Not out of anger or anything, they're just super avoidant. I don't feel like I know my parents at all, and our relationship is about as deep as a kiddie pool that's been half emptied. My dad also hit me a lot as a kid when he was home, and he was pretty angry. But I don't think it was considered abuse at the time because hitting your kids and making them pick out a switch to get hit with or hitting them with a belt was just the norm where I am from. Or so I'm told. I think I've shoved a lot of the sad, bad stuff from my childhood to the back of my mind because it doesn't seem that bad compared to what other people deal with. But hearing my dad say that him never being around when I was young wasn't an issue really brought up some weird emotions. I know this isn't some super crazy off my chest post, and I'm not trying to get pity or anything, but I guess I just don't have anywhere else to air this feeling out. I go to therapy, but lately it's felt more like problem-solving sessions, and I just needed a space to vent, eat it. Just seeing the responses here after work and bedtime, etc. I can't respond to everyone, but I'm very grateful for everyone who commented. The responses were all very kind. Comments. Commenter 1. Regardless of the norm, if your father hit you to the point of injuries, it was physical abuse. You're allowed to feel badly for having a shitty childhood, with parents who prioritized other things over you. You turning out okay does not negate that. Your dad is a shitty person, and it's okay to have negative feelings towards him. Commenter 2. As your child grows, you will wonder how your parents were able to do the things they did. You will see your child turn 3 and wonder how anyone could justify hitting a 3-year-old. You sound like you're resolved to the past, aware of the present, and understand your parents' limitations. Good for you in keeping in contact with them. Good for you, acknowledging your privilege, and good for you in allowing yourself to feel your feelings. You will be a better parent for it. Best wishes, Commenter 3. Damn dude, that hit home. Totally feel you. Parents often don't see the real impact their actions have on us, huh? And IMHO nothing normal about getting hit as a kid. That's tough stuff to deal with. Take care, man. Hope you continue working on it in therapy. You got this. Commenter 4. Hey, all we can do is break the cycle. My kids don't live the same life that I did, and I'm so grateful for that. They don't have the newest video games or a bunch of spare pocket money. They don't have a ton of expensive shoes or an e-bike or cell phones. Like some of the other kids in elementary school, I assume this is my old man yelling at clouds thing. But I'll die on that hill. But we all hang out. I apologize when I'm wrong, or make a mistake, or lose my temper. My kids aren't physically intimidated by me. My kids tell me and my wife things sometimes more than we want to hear. My oldest didn't move out the moment he could, and never come home except for holidays. Like I did, he still lives here. I have spent time with his friends and his girlfriend. And I've met his girlfriend's family. He's given us advice, and we've taken it hell. He's invited us to social events. He wants to spend time with us, together and one-po-one. My kids argue over who we love the most, not quietly consider which kid they regret the least. Thanks for loving your kids in the way you wished you were loved as a kid. Stories number 8. Am I a hole for refusing therapy because my parents will only get me therapy with me brother and not just for me? I have 3 siblings, Sam 20M, Jody 19F, and Nate 17M. I'm 16M, the youngest. I was always really close with Sam, good with Jody, but me and Nate never got along that much. It was small stuff when we were kids, like he'd interrupt me and I'd speak when he wanted to concentrate on stuff. It wasn't anything that bad, but when I turned 10, kids at school started bullying me, and Nate hated being related to me. He'd say things like he was embarrassed to be related to me and how he didn't want to sit next to me. Sam would tell him not to be a jerk, which made Nate hate me more. Eventually, Nate started joining in on the bullying at school. Our parents focused a lot on getting him to stop, and not so much on checking in on me or seeing if I was holding up okay. The bullying got so bad that when schools closed for COVID and we had to do it online, my teacher had to assign me to another teacher's group because the bullies would leave insulting comments to me during class. When we started back in school, I was assigned to a different class schedule than the kids bullying me, but it still wasn't enough. Nate turned into a relentless bully after that. He'd threaten me and tell me to off myself. He'd push me and spit on me. He said all the gay shit I was into was gross. Sam tried to act as a bodyguard for me at home, and when he first moved out, he'd let me spend time after school at his place. I have a key and everything. My parents didn't care much about what it was doing to me, and they focused more on having a kid who was a bully and was risking his future because the school was getting more involved. Then a group of Nate's friends jumped me while Nate watched. I know he was there, but he stayed out of the way, and nobody else saw him, so nothing could be done about him. Sam threatened to beat the shit out of him, but our parents said no way, and they said Nate wasn't there, and he had to be given the benefit of the doubt, even though he almost definitely knew what would happen. My parents put Nate in therapy after I got jumped. Now they say we need to figure out our relationship, so they want me to go to therapy with him. At first I thought they would say I needed therapy too, but no. They just want us to go to family therapy together. I'm not on board, and I said that, and I told them they had to be joking. Then they finally acknowledged I must have stuff to work through too, and I was like, yeah, but not with him there. I said I wasn't giving him more ammo to use against me. They said I was being overdramatic, and I needed to try. I'm digging in my heels, and my parents are acting like I said no to any therapy. I told them I'd do therapy by myself, but they only want to hear about me in therapy with him. Sam and Jody tried to talk things through to them, but they ignored everything they said. My parents keep trying to make me say yes. They tried to tell me I had no choice, and they keep saying I'm making things 1,000 over to X worse. Comments. Commenter 1. It's never a good idea to go to therapy with an abuser, and your brother qualifies. Even worse that he has a relationship with a therapist and you're just a visitor. He will manipulate the situation and weaponize anything you reveal. Just as you fear NTA, absolutely refuse to do this. Reply. I'm not sure if they want us to go to Nate's therapist or a new therapist. They didn't really say, but it would be so much worse if it was Nate's therapist. I honestly didn't even consider it could be them. Commenter 2. A family therapist may recommend individual therapy anyway, but NTA for sure. They're not focusing on both children in this scenario, and you are more likely to have a trauma disorder. Reply. They never focus on the two of us when it comes to the bullying. It was always about Nate and getting him to stop. Like that's the only thing that matters. Commenter 3. If you are forced to go, tell the therapist exactly what happened. I am here under duress. I am being coerced into coming here to help my brother, who abused and bullied me along with a group of people who beat me up. I'm not even allowed to go to therapy for myself and my own traumas. So I will not be cooperating or trying to help my main abuser. So what the fuck is wrong with my parents? NTA commenter 4, your parents are failing you. I am going to be the first of many comments on here to tell you that. However, go to therapy once. Tell the therapist everything he did to you. Tell them how your patents failed you. Tell the truth and shame the devil. Let them see how appalled a third party is at the abuse you've been getting. Then think long SNC hard if you want a relationship with them at 18. And tell them that as well. Also give your wonderful biggest brother a hug and tell him he's a diamond. Reply, I don't feel safe going to therapy with Nate even once. At that point I feel like I should just let them do whatever they want because Nate's going to have a field day with all my trauma and my feelings. That's one of the things I hate about us still being under the same roof, and Sam not living here, is how unsure I feel about my safety. But it would be way worse if he actually got the satisfaction of hearing how I feel. I'll make sure to give him an extra big hug today for you. Stories number 9. I fought for my daughters when everyone said I would lose. Well, I won, so my divorce began in December, years ago. And at the time, I didn't have the words for what I was living through. The manipulation, constant mental, emotional, and even spiritual abuse. I knew the relationship was deteriorating, and there was no way to keep going. I decided that it was best for us to go our separate ways, and I tried to walk away peacefully. It was a pretty simple plan. I would move to the next state over. She would stay in the original state. I would pay my child support and visit the girls every other weekend, which sounded fair and normal. Then came one weekend that changed everything. When I brought my daughters, who were at the time 3 and 4, back to their mother, my oldest started screaming. Not a tantrum or anything of that sort. It was that heart-wrenching cry, I don't want to go. Want to stay with you? Don't make me go? And that still echoes in my head today. I knew something wasn't right. I decided to fight for custody, and I found a lawyer. Then another lawyer, then another. 7 lawyers in total, all telling me the same thing. Unless you have video of her do crack cocaine in a meth lab with all the gangbangers and your daughters are there. You won't win, dads don't get custody. The 8th lawyer who said he didn't know if I was right, but he could hear the truthfulness and the honesty in my voice. And that small bit of faith in me was enough for both of us to start fighting for my daughters. When my ex learned I was contesting, she messaged me in a text that gutted me. She said, my lawyer said I don't have to let you see the kids anymore because you are contesting. And she did just that. For weeks there were no calls, no visits. I did not want at all. I would lie in bed starting into the void, wondering if it'd ever see my daughters again. Broken look even when an IED blast hit my vehicle in Iraq. It wasn't even close to how terrifying and breaking to not even hearing your daughter's voices. Finally the court stepped in, and I got to see my girls again. It felt like breathing for the first time in months. My lawyer hired a private investigator, because he was now becoming concerned and needing to understand what was really happening when the kids weren't with me. The reports were chaos. Late-night motel trips to random rooms. Endless driving around the city. Meetups with individuals with records. Some of the nights no one could tell where the kids were. Then one weekend, about 8 or 9 months into this divorce and custody battle, she called and said she had extra work and asked if I could keep the kids longer. Of course I said yes. Turns out the work was a beach trip with her friends, and that was, I believe, the moment she got that taste of childless freedom. So she asked after her business trip if the kids could just stay with me for a while. I didn't question it. I just said yes, by the way. When her lawyer found out she did this, he dropped her immediately. I kept caring for me kids. About 2 months have gone by. Then in early December, about a year after all this began, my lawyer called. He said, Hammer, you need to get here now, either today or tomorrow. Your ex wrote a letter to the judge, and what she wrote is insane. In the letter to the judge, she admitted she couldn't take care of the kids because she was 6 months pregnant by a registered sex offender. We couldn't believe it, like she was trying to outdo herself or one-up herself in crazy. We had an emergency hearing, and for the first time, he heard every detail. The recordings, the investigators' findings, the miles I drove every other weekend on barely $200 a month. Even the bailiff, a veteran of 14 years, said she never seen anything like this. The judge was appalled and was not happy at all. He granted me full custody, suspended her visitation until she completed treatment. It was December and it was one of the best Christmas gifts of my life. That was about 15 years ago. She never started any court-suggested treatment to get her visitation back. Never called, never sent a card. My daughters are grown now and in high school. They are so smart, kind, funny, and strong. I didn't know if I could raise them good as a single dad because I was still in my mid-20s. But I did know that I will give my life for them, and would give anything to make them happy. I don't believe I deserve such wonderful daughters, but I thank God every day that I got the chance to be their dad. I went to thinking if I would ever see them again, to being there for every birthday, every milestone, every graduation, every achievement, every failure, and every ordinary Tuesday. I am sharing this because there might be someone hearing the same words I once did, that you won't succeed. Well, I did. The road may break you down, but every step forward, even if it's inches, will get you there. Every single sacrifice was worth it, and I would go through the worst pain and suffering 1,000 times more, again and again, to be with my daughters. So, I hope this post give at least one person hope. TLDR. My ex tried to cur my daughters from me. Almost every single person said I will lose my battle. Because I was a dad, I kept fighting anyway. A private investigator uncovered the truth, the judge saw it, and I was granted full custody, 15 years later. My girls are grown, king, and strong. The fight was worth every mile and every sacrifice made. Commenter 1, I caught my baby mama cheating on me. I left, and when she tried to keep the kids from me, I took her to court and got a crap visitation deal. Over the next few years, I managed to get full custody of both. This was over 15 years ago. The youngest of the two just moved out to college, and her older sister moved with her to Sacramento. I do not deserve the wonderful kids they are. The fight was worth every mile and every sacrifice made. You and me both. All the nights crying and praying paid off. Reply, I am so happy for you. Not only did you never give up on your kids, you never gave up on yourself. Congratulations, mate. Commenter 2. What ended up happening to the ex? Reply, truth is, I have no idea. My ex's sister called me a few years ago and told me my ex pretty much gave up her son for the kid she had with the registered sex offender. I think he isn't doing well at all, sadly, and I did raise him the short while I was with my ex, so I feel bad for that kid. Commenter 3, you are an inspiration. I too could hear your daughter's cry for help in my heart through your storytelling. Thank you for persevering and being their hero. Commenter 4, I can't believe how terrible your kid's mom was. As a divorced parent, your post made me cry. Thank you for not giving up and fighting for your daughters. They deserve to be loved and cared for the way you did. The way you're doing. Stories number 10. Asking to pay for a trip I did not attend? I 25F am part of a bridal party for a close friend whose wedding is coming up soon. A few months ago, the maid of honor planned a bachelorette party in another country. From the very beginning, I let them know I wouldn't be able to attend due to financial reasons. International travel and the associated costs just aren't in my budget right now. Everyone was understanding at the time, or so I thought. The bachelorette trip happened recently, and days after the group got back to the States, the maid of honor sent a message in the group chat, specifically one that included only the bridal party members who did not attend the trip, asking each of us to send $300 so the bride wouldn't have to pay her share of the trip. This completely blindsided me. I never agreed to contribute financially to something I wasn't attending, and at no point before or during the planning did anyone say anything about splitting the bride's costs among people who weren't going. If they had, I would have made it clear that I couldn't afford that either. Now I'm feeling really weird about the whole thing. On one hand, I get that people want to treat the bride, and if I'd been part of the trip, I might have chipped in with the others to cover some of her expenses. But to ask for that money after the fact from people who didn't even go feels unfair and borderline manipulative. I haven't responded to the message yet, and I don't want to cause drama. But I also feel like I shouldn't have to pay for something I didn't attend, especially when I was up front from the beginning. So, am I a hole for thinking it's unfair to ask me to pay $300 for a trip I didn't go on? Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA. I would send a text in the original chat asking how much those who did attend are contributing towards the bride. $300 a person is a lot from the sound of it. That's at least $600. You want to be sure you're not subsidizing anyone else's trip. Reply. It would be split 10 ways, so I'm assuming they spent $3K per person. It was a weekend trip, so I couldn't justify the cost. Commenter 2, NTA at all. If this were an expectation, this all should have been clearly communicated to all bridesmaids before the trip, so people could adjust their budget or opt out in time. For those who didn't attend, you all shouldn't be expected to foot any part of the bill, and anything you decide to gift, if at all, should be considered a kindness. This whole season of expectation around wedding events is becoming so overwhelming. Commenter 3. Send a message stating that there's been a misunderstanding, and when you said you couldn't financially afford to go on the trip, this also included paying for anyone else to go on the trip. Commenter 4, I would not reply to the text. If later questioned, I would simply state I didn't pay attention to it, as obviously it had nothing to do with me. If she keeps pressing, acknowledge how frustrating that must be for her, and wish her luck figuring it out. There is no way I would feel guilty or uncomfortable, due to lack of planning or communication from others. That's a her problem to solve. Hope this is helpful. Update. Asked to pay for a trip I did not attend? I texted the bride telling her that due to financial issues, I would no longer be able to be a bridesmaid. But I wish her the best and would still love to be there for her and attend as a guest. I know. I should have at least called, but I also struggle with confrontation and social anxiety, so I prefer to do things over text. So I have time to really think about what I'm going to say, but shit really hit the fan. She told me she's really hurt by my decision, and she felt that she deserved more than a text message valid, and that she doesn't know where we go from here. Hindsight is 20/20, so I asked if I could call her after I got out of work, to which she never responded. I tried reaching out a few more times, and she told me she didn't have time for this drama, which I took as she needed some space, so I decided to respect that. Her bridal shower came and went, and I did not attend, because we haven't had any contact with each other since I dropped out of the bridal party. But the drama doesn't end there. You see, I like to make jokes that the bride is friends with everyone and their mom because she truly has a lot of friends. And I'm not even being dramatic. Basically, everyone I know has been invited to this wedding, including my own mom, and my sisters, and my brother, and my cousins, but not me. I never got an invitation. I feel like the only thing I have to apologize for was pulling out over a text, but my reasoning behind it was completely valid. And how can I even apologize now when I'm being ghosted? Also, I'm not even sure if I want to reach out anymore because I don't feel like I need to beg for someone's friendship. Not really looking for advice, just wanted to get some feelings out and figured you guys might want an update. It does make me sad that she threw away a 20-year friendship over this though. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Based on the post you linked, I don't see how that was reason to drop out of the wedding party. I would have felt blindsided as the bride, especially if I didn't know anyone asked you to pay for anything. Reply, okay, I definitely posted a very watered-down version of the story, but basically I dropped out after the MOH told us that we're renting a huge house for the shower and we would have to set up for 3 days and that we needed to split everything equally to make sure it all works for the bride. That text came less than 24 hours after I said I was able to pitch in $100 for the bachelorette and not $300, so it kind of felt passive-aggressive to me. The house and balloons had us at a $2,000 tab already, and didn't include any drinks, food, decor, or party favors, so I was really nervous about the budget. And that's when I texted her. I did tell her I wasn't sure if she was aware that we were being asked to pay for everything, and I just couldn't swing it financially, and that's why I was pulling out. I also sent the text back in July and the wedding is in November. I'm also hurt that one of the other bridesmaids told me she texted the bride and pulled out for financial reasons, and she didn't send any money for the bachelorette. And she is still invited, and the bride was extremely kind to her and said she understood. She even said that the other girl could just be there for her day of and not pay anything, and that it was offensive because I only threw in $100, which is basically nothing. Commenter 2. How did this bridesmaid go about telling the bride she couldn't do it? Based on information you've given, that has to be the reason the bride is still inviting her and not you. Reply, I'm not sure exactly what the text said, but I know she told her through a text. And then the bride called her, and that's when she said I was offensive, that I only gave her $100 towards the bachelorette trip. The bride did tell me a few months ago that she only asked her to be a bridesmaid because they used to be really close, but they haven't really been in touch lately. So I'm really not sure what's happening. When did the other bridesmaid drop out? Reply, it was between 2-4 weeks after I pulled out and also over a text message. I just don't know exactly what was said. Commenter 3. Your family is still going when she treats you like this. Why? Reply, my mom says I shouldn't be friends with her if she's going to ghost me and just not send an invitation after I had tried reaching out a few times, so she isn't going. My sisters have a relationship with the bride they met through me, but they'll hang out with her on their own, so I feel like their relationship with her is separate from ours, and they say that they thinking about it, but to be honest, I think they'll still go because they've had dinners with her since then. My cousin also has a relationship with the bride but feels I'm being treated unfairly, so she also isn't going. The bride is telling the bridesmaids that it was so easy for me to drop out of being her bridesmaid, so it's easy for her to drop me as a friend, but it really wasn't. I stressed so much about sending the text in the first place. And once I'd realized my mistake, I tried to fix it. Another one of the comments said that she expected more from me because we were close compared to the other ex-bridesmaid. But on the flip side, don't I deserve to be heard out and not just ghosted if we were so close? I can't think of another time in the past 20 years that we've had anything bad happen between us. So that's why I feel like the entire friendship is being thrown away over this. But also now, when I step back and look at everything I know about her, I'm not sure I should be surprised that she dropped me because she once got into an argument with her own sister and didn't talk to her for 4 years, and she missed her sister's wedding and the first 3 years of her niece's life. To be fair though, I'm not 100% sure what it was about, but I know they were arguing about the family finances, all the kids help pay for the parents' home. Commenter 4. Does the bride actually know what the problem was? Because it seems like the financial pressure was coming from the MOH, so the bride might have no idea what's happened behind the scenes. Reply: I don't know if she knew before I dropped out. But in the text I explained to her all the things we were being told to pay for, and how there was no conversation about budget. The MOH would just say, hey, this is what we're doing and it costs X amount, and I just felt like that was unfair. Commenter 5. I genuinely get financial constraints, but you dropped out via text and got upset that the bride wouldn't hear you out and now are mad that you're not invited to the wedding. I feel like you're not seeing the forest for the trees here, and I struggled severely with anxiety. But don't use it as an excuse here. You hurt your friend, and she doesn't want to consider you a friend anymore. That was a consequence of your decision. Reply: it just really hurts my feelings that 2 weeks after I did, another bridesmaid sent her a text pulling out for financial reasons, and the bride called her to ask if she would be able to show up and wear the dress and not pay anything. Why am I getting treated differently? The other girl also didn't send anything, but I sent $100 for the bachelorette, and the bride told her that I was disrespectful for not paying the full $300 and I should have just not even bothered. OOP on making a mistake when sending a response via text to the bride. Reply: I understood I made a mistake when I saw how she responded to my text. That's why I tried to call her afterwards. I was thinking I hurt her feelings, so she needed space, which I gave. But I feel like the way she escalated it by not sending me an invitation is really mean when my entire family is invited. Is it wrong to think that since we were so close that I was even asked to be a bridesmaid that I also deserve a chance to apologize? Or was me sending the text so bad I deserve to be cut off and for her to go full no contact is valid? We both grew up with poor families and had to hustle our entire lives. So she's always been very conscious about finances, but suddenly it's go big or go home. And I just can't. I guess I'll just go home? OP on the friendship with the bride. Reply: that's how I feel. Like if we were so close for me to even be a bridesmaid, wouldn't you at least hear me out and give me a chance to apologize? We also have the same group of friends, and she even hangs out with my family, so I'm not sure how to navigate this going forward because I'm definitely going to run into her at some point. Honestly, I think I would be less hurt if she had totally cussed me out or something, or told me I was uninvited instead of being ghosted and just not sent an invitation. At least I'd have some sort of closure. Stories number 11. Am I a hole for not moving my car and disrupting an autistic student's ritual? I 48F have a daughter 15F who just had knee surgery. When she returned to school, she was in a full leg brace and using crutches. On her first day back to school, I got to the parking lot early to get a spot in the pickup zone, because I knew she was in pain, and also would need assistance getting in and out of the car. I was parked there a couple of minutes when someone knocked on my window. I opened it and a mom said, "I need you to move your car." I asked why, and she explained that she always parks in that spot because her autistic son has a ritual with the fire hydrant there, and that's the only place he will go to be picked up. I responded that I would not move and explained to her my situation. She then repeatedly insisted that I had to move, and when I continued to refuse, she said she would report me. Admittedly, her son did come out to the fire hydrant and then tried to get into my car. I noticed as I was trying to redirect him, and I do work with autistic adults, so I have some techniques of my own, that the mom was standing some distance back with one of the special ed teachers just watching. It felt like they were waiting for me to make some sort of egregious error. I did redirect him with the help of another kid who seemed to know him, and I got my daughter into the car. She was in tears from the pain, and we left. The next day I was not there quite so early, so I did not get that same spot. But the special ed teacher made a point of coming over and explaining to me how my lack of kindness had fully disrupted the young man's ritual, confused him terribly, and caused him to try to elope at school that day. So should I have just moved my car? Edit. My daughter had already been out 10 days and had wanted to return to school and had doctor's clearance. It was just a bit too much, even with the assistance she was provided. Edit. Day 2. I also got into the pickup zone. Just not that spot. If I'd left the pickup zone the first day, I would have been shunted out of the parking lot and around the school into the line, which would have taken an additional 10 to 15 minutes. Comments. Commenter 1. I work in autism support and have autism. And this is the exact reason that you have to work on coping skills and tolerating when things don't go as expected. What would she have done if you weren't in the car? She would literally have no option. Commenter 2 NTA. This mother isn't doing her child nay favors by teaching the entire world revolves around his comfort. Commenter 3 NTA. One person's special needs do not supersede another person's. Shame on the special ed teacher for getting involved. Commenter 4 NTA. Tell the special ed teacher to bugger off and report him. Your daughter has a physical issue ATM. And I'm saying this as someone who is autistic. AD has autistic kids, siblings, and nibblings. Mom and special ed teachers are major AHs for not getting the kid away from you. And I would be reporting that as well. Stories number 12. Church is seriously the ultimate money-saving hack. I am absolutely not some shill for the church. My wife has been involved in the church for her entire life, and I just go out of respect. I was born very poor, and I still think I am, so I had to learn to pinch a penny. I am an atheist, but I love my wife and I'm not a child, so I go to church with her on Sunday. Obviously, when you go enough, you get to know people. It's honestly crazy how much cheap labor, food, help, etc. that you can get from the church. I got a hole in my roof, and one of the guys from the church owned a roofing company. He gave me the material at cost and had some teens from the church help repair the roof with him for free. Somebody will help with plumbing, painting, electrical work, etc. Lady at my church runs the damn DMV and helped me in a pinch with a license issue. When my wife got ill and they did a food train and gave us meals for a month. I could go on, but for people that are really struggling, I think using the church can be a huge asset. Comments. Commenter 1. You guys should give back. Offer what you can and what skills you have to help others. And that's not a hack. That's how society should be. Commenter 2. Think the important thing the post is also missing is that it's also important to give back as well, with your time and efforts to help others in the congregation. Commenter 3 Aman. That's what real churches are for. I once got a bus ticket from a church I went to only one time. Got me out of Danville in the nick of time. Commenter 4. I've always felt that religion as a whole has caused many conflicts in history, and still causes issues. But people at individual churches or temples are very kind and giving. Many aren't extremists, and want to help their community and be kind. Sikh temples are known to have free meals, and are welcome to all. Stories number 13. MIL has been telling people she's my daughter's biological mother and I just found out. Am I overreacting? I need to know if I'm overreacting or if this is as insane as it feels. Some background. My daughter is 14 months old. She has red hair and green eyes like my MIL. I have brown hair and brown eyes. My husband, her son, has brown hair and hazel eyes. Our daughter looks nothing like me and everyone comments on it. I've made peace with that. Genetics are weird, whatever. Last weekend we went to Mill's church for some fundraiser thing she guilted us into attending. I'm not religious, but trying to keep the peace. We get there and like 5 different women come up to me gushing about how wonderful it is that we're raising my husband's daughter, and what a blessing I am. I was confused but smiled and said thanks. Then this older woman pulls me aside and says, I just think it's so special that you're giving Mill's name this gift. Not every woman could be so selfless. I said, what gift? And she looks uncomfortable and says, the baby? Letting her son raise her granddaughter as his own? I said, that's my daughter. I gave birth to her. And this woman's face just goes white and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Mill said. And then she just walked away fast. I found my husband and told him we needed to leave right now. In the car, I asked him what the fuck that was about. He got quiet and admitted his mom has been letting people assume that our daughter is biologically hers. Letting people assume. I made him explain, and apparently because our daughter has red hair like Emil, and because MIL is always posting photos with her with captions like my girl, and she has my eyes. People at her church think Mael got pregnant in her late 50s, which okay, that's its own weird assumption, but whatever, and that we're raising the baby for her. My husband said he thought it was harmless. People make assumptions and his mom just doesn't correct them. He said it makes her happy to have people think the baby looks like her. I asked how long he's known about this and he said a few months. His sister told him people at church were confused about whose baby it was, and he asked his mom and she played it off like people were just being silly. I haven't spoken to MIL since Saturday. She's texted me 3 times asking why we left early and if everything's okay. My husband thinks I'm being overdramatic and that it doesn't matter what people at her church think. But like she's literally let people believe she gave birth to my child. She's erasing me as her mother. And my husband knew and didn't tell me. I want to go NC, but my husband is in the fog hard. He keeps saying she's not actually telling people that. They're just assuming. But she's posting photos with captions designed to make people think that. Am I crazy or is this completely fucked up? Also, we live 15 minutes from this church. What happens when my daughter is older and we run into these people at the grocery store or wherever and they think MIL is her mom? Comments. Commenter 1, I am furious for you. I would take my daughter to church next Sunday and walk up to the front and loudly tell everyone that contrary to whatever MIL has been saying, LO is mine and my husband's biological daughter while staring daggers at her. Then leave and go NC. Unbelievable. What a scent. Commenter 2, overly dramatic? Is he hitting the sheets with her? I would divorce so fast. I'm sorry, but this is one of the most messed up things I have ever seen. They are both willing to erase you in total for their messed up lie. He is the father, and yet let church people think his mom is the mom. That's the truth, beyond the pale. Call her minister, I am serious. Then a shelter lawyer. Now commenter 3. So husband is thinking it is okay that his mom is pretending to have his baby? Pitch him the incest angle. Maybe he will understand. Maybe not. He doesn't seem too bright. Go no contact with her. I might be pretty and tag her in a post letting people know that she is pretending. Then tell your husband he either fixes this or he goes home to live with her. Commenter 4. She's not right. Normal people don't do this. She's not actually telling people, they're assuming. But she isn't correcting them. Your husband needs a good shake, FFS. What's wrong with him? OP, you won't need to explain to her by now. It's spread like wildfire at the church that she's a liar. Sad, really? I'm a grandmother. I absolutely love being nanny. I love it. I wouldn't even think to pretend she's my child. Stories number 14. Child free gets the last laugh. Ha ha. We have these neighbors above us who have a child. Not a toddler, but also not a 10-year-old. So between the ages of 5-8. They have gotten noise complaints before about a hoverboard running in circles around the island in the kitchen on hardwood floors. So he doesn't use that in the apartment unit. However, during the day, we're completely fine. Our noise ordinance for the building goes into effect at 10 p.m. Between the hours of 8-9:30, this child will chase their small dog around the apartment and create what would be considered booming thunder in our ceiling. And my man is really chill, extremely laid back, but it has gotten to the point where we had to slam his steel-toed boots into the ceiling to give them an idea, only for them to standing jumping for 15 minutes after, causing my dogs to hide and wake up my wheelchair-bound Emile who is on chemo. We have politely tried to communicate to get cussed out through the door, and their child throw things at the door when trying to communicate. Joke's on y'all, though. We complain so much the apartment is waiving the 1K unit moving fee, and we are going from directly below them to directly above them, top floor. And guess who's getting the last laugh when it comes to noise? Me. And I will be making sure I will not be going out of my way to keep my dogs from running inside or roughhousing. I shall go without my slides and walk heel to ground. I might even decide to do a little runway walk in my heels if a drop a pot at 9:45. Oopsie. I have complained and sent video footage for over an entire year. They have had multiple courtesy calls and letters. Not my problem anymore. And before y'all come into the comment section that have kids and try to make excuses, or those that are child advocates or who just don't see a problem with their behavior, maybe, just maybe, if they had not been so disrespectful in the entirety of it all, cussing us out, purposely letting their kid use the metal railings on the patio as a kickback board for his soccer balls, I wouldn't be so bitter as I am. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and babes, my nerves are pretty fucking frozen. Edit. Reply notifications have been disabled as your opinions aren't going to change the outcome. Nor do I continue to care. Every comment that I made that I get response to that makes it through will be disabled. Your opinions and angry thumbs are not going to change anything except your own mood. Be mindful that not everyone lives on the internet, and that I do not care how you people feel. Comments. Commenter 1, want a great annoyance? Pounding chicken. I couldn't figure out for the life of me what my upstairs neighbor was doing in their darn kitchen. It never lasted long, so I never complained. But I realized one day she was pounding chicken breasts flat for dinner and it came right through the ceiling. Ha ha ha. Reply, pound chicken. Commenter 2. Having kids is not a license to make noise and be a shit about it. Some noises to be expected but on moderation, and if you have been repeated, warned, it is time to take the hint. Commenter 3. Parents cussing neighbors out in front of their kid who's throwing stuff at people at the door? I'd say yeah, they deserve it in full, 100%. I wouldn't waste a second before I start walking on my heels and slamming stuff around during the move so they know they fucked up. Reply, oh, I'm not. The moment I get the keys and start moving boxes. Things that can be free slammed will be. Commenter 4. This post makes me so happy. I lived above noisy neighbors with a child. They would also party until 2 a.m., and when I tried to knock on their door to talk to them, they drunkenly yelled at me and slammed the door in my face. I started blasting music and placed my subwoofer on the floor for hours during the day, literally stomping on the ground because I was so sick of it. This was after I complained to building manager, and they did nothing. I'm glad you get to have your payback, OP. Stories number 15. Am I a hole for filing a claim through my neighbor's insurance after she hit my car? A few days ago, my neighbor comes to my door to tell me she had just hit my car. Keep in mind, I don't know this woman. I've only spoken to her once, maybe. I go outside to check out the damage, and it's not terrible, but it's enough that I will need to get it fixed. Aside from one, I'm so sorry, all she wanted to talk about at the time is how my car was parked across from her driveway. On my side of the street, she lives directly across from me. I really got the feeling from that initial interaction that she was looking for me to admit fault for having my car parked where it was. My little brother, who had just learned to drive, was the one who parked it there. I know better and actively try not to, since I know it is inconvenient for the person across the street backing out of their driveway, mind you. It's still pretty easy to avoid hitting the car. Anyway, she keeps bringing it up and mentions that she thinks it's an HOA violation. My instinct is always to get insurance information, which thankfully I did. Of course, I asked her to file the claim since she was at fault, and I assumed she would cooperate. That did not happen. She repeatedly mentioned to me that she had no intention of going through insurance. Now, I would have been open to her paying me directly, but she also repeatedly mentions how I was parked against HOA rules, and that we both know this wouldn't have happened if you weren't parked there. She also said she would have me go to 3 places for an estimate and accompany me there before paying for it. No thanks. So I eventually decided to file a claim myself through her insurance, because at this point, I have reason to believe she wouldn't pay for all the repair, or would at the very least make it super difficult. After telling her I filed a claim, she's now saying I am messed up, and you think I wouldn't pay? She's insinuating that I'm not being neighborly, which is funny considering the long texts she has sent in which she's being very demeaning. Hopefully the claim isn't bounced back because I'd rather not go through my insurance and risk increasing my payment. Anyway, am I the asshole? Comments. Commenter 1 NTA. As a car owner who has suffered damage, you have the right to file claim with your insurer. The claim determination is done by the claims adjuster. Document everything, photos of the car, the street, your interaction with the neighbor. All of it will be useful if they dispute the claim or fault determination. Commenter 2 NTA. As someone that has handled a lot of auto claims, you did the right thing. Initial estimates are usually just initial. So what happens when there is a supplement and she does not agree with it? What then? In addition, you are owed a rental vehicle while the car is being repaired. Does not sound like she discussed that with you. Even if it was against the HOA rules, she still has to pay attention while driving. As an adjuster, I would never place fault on a parked vehicle in a situation like this. This would not have happened if she was actually paying attention to what she was doing. I have handled plenty of claims with people like her where they try to blame the complete visible and immobile object they hit. They are not the type of person I would trust to make sure that my vehicle was repaired to the pre-accident condition it was in. Tell her that you will be pursuing through insurance so that you can get a rental, and in case of any supplements, they will be taken care of. Reply, thanks for the input. Not that I owe it to her, but I have been trying to find a way to explain to her why I insist on going through insurance without saying the obvious, I don't trust you, LOL. What you said sums it up well. Commenter 2 reply, I will say. After handling thousands of claims, that people often are apologetic on scene and then basically once information is exchanged and you part ways, people very often only think about themselves. Which for you makes sense. You did nothing wrong. However, for this other person, they are doing the same. And you can see the proof that she is only thinking of herself based off what she said and how she has acted. She absolutely does not have your best interest in mind. Commenter 3. If you would have entertained her paying the bill, this would have gone bad very fast. I am an insurance adjuster for auto claims, and almost every estimate is just that. An estimate, Most come back with a secondary bill, a supplement because they took an extra half hour or found more damage. We always get follow-up bills. She would have been a fucking nightmare. Commenter 4. NTA. I had the same situation. Except I was the one who backed into a car parked across the street. That car was technically parked partially in a traffic lane. Not fully on the shoulder there was horrible sunglar. And no one has ever parked there before. But it was 100% my fault. I hit that car. And I went through my insurance right away. Your neighbor could have discussed it with you. But it's your choice how to handle it. And you had every right to file a claim. Stories number 16, parking on my property. I had the most insane conversation of my life yesterday. And the brazenness is so bloody funny, I had to share it with y'all. For context, my wife and I have purchased a house with some bigger corner property in a German village from an 87-year-old this January. The close neighbors are super friendly and we get along very well, have BBQs and so on. In the past, I already had some issues with several people parking on my lawn. Insert get of my lawn meme here. I mean all four wheels on the grass, parallel parking, but a quick towing fixed that for good. Quick side note. I tried to talk with the folks living a street down the road before I called the tow truck, and they told me to suck a big rooster as they have a party and I should live with their guests parking on my lawn. So back to the story, I was working from home and my doorbell rang and in front was Karen. She looked me up and down and asked in a quite condescending tone, whose car is in the driveway blocking it? I told her it's mine and what the matter was. She introduced herself, same folks from above, and demanded I should move my car because she wants to park in my driveway, as she doesn't find a good parking spot on the road. When I asked why she thinks she can park in my driveway, she explained that the previous owner hadn't had a car, and never noticed that she parked there. And because she always did that, I should make space or she'll call the cops. Told her to pound sand and close the door in her face. She actually called the cops, but that was resolved quite easily, and we had her removed from our property. The audacity of these folks is just astonishing. Comments. Commenter 1. My smartass brain went straight to, that last owner is dead. He died when the ambulance couldn't get up the driveway because somebody was parked in it. Reply. I can assure you he's doing fine. Just in a retirement home due to dementia. Commenter 2. I had a similar problem. Living close to the center of a tourist town. Buy some rocks at least 40 centimeters wide, and place them every 2 meters on the grass along the border. Takes care of people parking on your lawn. Commenter 3. This the kind of delusion you only get when you've never been told no in your whole damn life. Reply. What was that quote? You can tell that some people were never punched in the face before. Or so. Looking forward to the next chapter with these folks. Commenter 4. Some people really think property rules are suggestions. Absolute audacity to demand you move your own car. Reply. If it was the property next to mine, I could argue that there could be some property line dispute or whatever. But that woman lives like 4 or 5 properties away. Stories number 17. Am I a hole for not wanting to split rent equally with my boyfriend who makes 10x more than me? So me 24F and my boyfriend 28M have been together for 2 years and we're moving in together next month. Here's the thing. I make about $35K as a teacher and he makes around $350K in tech. When we started talking about finances, he suggested we split everything 50-50 including rent, utilities, groceries, etc. The apartment we're looking at costs $4,200 a month, which means I'd be paying $2,100. That's literally more than half my take-home pay just for rent. Meanwhile, for him it's like pocket change. I brought up maybe doing proportional splits based on income, but he said that's not fair, because we're both getting equal benefit from the apartment. I tried explaining that I'd have maybe $500 left over each month for everything else. Car payment, student loans, savings, personal stuff. He said I should just budget better or find a higher paying job. Like, bro, I'm already working summers and tutoring on weekends. To top it off, he won a shitload of cash recently on stake. His argument is that he worked hard to get where he is and shouldn't have to subsidize my life choices. Apparently being a teacher is a life choice now. He also said if I can't afford to live the lifestyle he wants, then maybe we're not compatible. That one really stung. I'm starting to think this isn't really about money, but about him viewing us as equals in this relationship. We've been going in circles about this for weeks, and I'm honestly questioning if we should even move in together. Am I a hole for wanting proportional rent splits, or should I just suck it up and find a way to make 50-50 work? Comments. Commenter 1. Absolutely do not move in with him and cut your losses now. You do not want to be with somebody making literally 10 times more than you who isn't even willing to do a 70-30 split. You're not being unreasonable. But he needs to find somebody with an equal income. If he wants to split 50-50, then it can go based on your budget, not his. Commenter 2, NTA. A 50-50 split can work, but only if all of the expenses are based on what you can afford, not him. So it should be cheap enough that it easily fits your budget. Basically, the kind of place you're living in now. It doesn't seem like he's willing to lower himself to your level, though. So I'd just break up with him. You'll run your finances ragged trying to keep up with a jerk like that? Commenter 3, nope. Do not move in, do not pass go. You've reached the point where you discovered that you are not compatible with an asshole. No person that loved you would put you in that type of financial position. How would he expect you to save money or enjoy life at all? He's gross. You're awesome for realizing it before moving in. Find a roomie or two who aren't on the crazy selfish train. Commenter 4 NTA he is. Don't move in with him. Stay where you are. He expects you to live on $500 a month after rent? WTF. Basically, he'll be vacationing without you BC you wouldn't be able to afford it. Etc. Isn't he special? Ugh, stories number 18. I got a smell complaint at work today, so I 26F started a new job about a month ago. I feel like I've been doing pretty well except for a few minor mistakes here and there. However, I can't help but have this nervous feeling that one day I'm going to get called into my supervisor's office and be told, it's not working out. Well, lo and behold, my worst nightmare came true today, as my manager asked if I could stop by her office for a few minutes right before I left for the day. She asked me to close the door behind me and my heart fell to the floor. I think it showed on my face because she pretty quickly said, "You're not in trouble, don't worry." Easier said than done when you're in a closed meeting with your manager and supervisor. Both their desks are in the same room, and both were there after I sat down. I asked what's up as casually as I could, and they said that there was a personal scent issue that was brought up to them. Now I won't lie. I was confused because I thought they were saying SENT like I had sent a bad email or fax. But no, SCENT, and a personal one at that. My anxiety quickly morphed into crippling embarrassment. My hygiene is something I'm beyond paranoid about. I have ADHD, and keeping up with laundry, showering, and even brushing my teeth is not one of my strong suits. On top of that, ADHD medication makes you sweat a ton. So I'm always wearing a jacket or sweater at work since my uniform is short-sleeved, and I'm paranoid that people will smell my gross sweaty pits. And today maybe someone did. As I sat in embarrassed silence, my supervisor said, I didn't have to tell them anything, but they just wanted to inform me about the issue. I quickly said I'd work on it and got myself out of there to finish my day at work, and hopefully not burst into tears in front of everyone. I guess I'm a little thankful my manager waited until the end of the day to tell me, because the thought of being told as gently as possible that I stink and then having to continue sitting there at my desk like nothing's wrong is even worse. But that brings me to here where my mind is going a million miles an hour in a million different directions. Was it just from today? Was it one person or multiple? Was it because I took my jacket off for a few minutes today? Or has this been an ongoing issue? And there's actually a bunch of complaints against, typical anxiety thoughts. All I know is that something about me smelled bad enough that they had to tell our boss about it. And that is killing me right now. I'm even too embarrassed to call my best friend to tell them about this whole situation. So maybe I'll be more at ease telling a bunch of internet strangers about it. If anyone has any advice on how to get better at taking care of my hygiene, please let me know. For now, I'm going to take the world's longest shower. Comments, Commenter 1. Secret deodorant, clinical strength solid, buy more clothes shirts. So always have something clean. Keep toothbrush, mouthwash, and toothpaste at work. This is your time to rise. Now it's emotionally important to you. Every time you think about procrastinating laundry, think about how awful this feels. Can you do laundry where you live? Throw load in before dinner. Move to dryer while you sleep. Pull clean clothes out to wear to work. Commenter 2. I will be blunt with you and say this. This is not a problem of someone noticing today. This has probably been an ongoing issue from day one. It probably took 3 weeks for your coworkers to come forward and another few days for your manager to address it. I have terrible ADHD, and I fully understand I just can't do X. So I'm not going to tell you to just be cleaner. But if you want to hang on to your job, you will need some form of coping skills or way to get through this. A therapist can maybe help with strategies. My showers take a minute and a half unless I'm shaving my legs and washing my hair, which I do maybe every 3 days. Dry shampoo kills hair odor and grease. Wet wipes for the pits and crotch if you really can't shower. Chew gum if you refuse to brush your teeth. Buy a new outfit from Walmart every week if you refuse to do laundry. Commenter 3. This is something you can absolutely work on. And FYI, no shade, covering yourself in layers does nothing to mask a scent. It probably makes it worse TBH. A quick 5-min shower to scrub the day off, start the day every day, and deodorant will do wonders. You don't have to have an elaborate routine to stay fresh. Get a 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner, a washcloth or whatever you choose, and some body wash. Scrub your body and wash off 5 mins tops. Try to just put the embarrassment behind you and commit to having this goal of better hygiene. You can do it. I believe in you. Sometimes we have to do hard things and push through the yucky feelings. Commenter 4, are you showering daily? Putting on antiperspirant right after the shower? And again in the morning if you showered at night? Wearing clean clothes? I'm sorry. That's so awkward. I tried natural deodorant for about a year, and at first it was fine. I work in a cold office, but at some point it stopped working for me, and I was consistently stinky by the end of the workday. Back to aluminum-based antiperspirants for me. Stories number 19. My brother's baby comments spiraled into a full-blown family feud, so I never thought a throwaway joke at a family dinner could cause this much chaos. I'm 29, my brother Nathan is 32, and he and his wife Brittany just had their first baby, a little girl named Ella, about 3 months ago. Everyone's been obsessed with the baby, rightfully so, but the energy in our family has shifted hard since she was born. Everything revolves around her, which is normal. But Brittany has also turned into this hypersensitive, easily offended version of herself that none of us really recognize anymore. Before I even get into the story, I'll just say, I've always been close to Nathan growing up. It was just us and our mom, Debbie. Our dad left when I was 7, and Nathan was 10, so we kind of learned to rely on each other. We were those siblings that could roast each other mercilessly 1 minute and defend each other to death the next. That's how our whole family operates. Lots of teasing, lots of sarcastic humor. Brittany knew that about us when she married into the family. At first, she said she loved it. She said we were refreshingly honest. Now apparently, I'm passive-aggressive and judgmental. Anyway, the incident happened 2 weeks ago at a family dinner at my mom's house. It was one of those casual weekend dinners. Grilled chicken, salad, and a big casserole that Debbie made because she still thinks carbs are comfort. Nathan and Brittany brought the baby, of course. And everyone was passing her around like a hot potato. I'll admit, I'm not the best with babies. I'm not cold. I just don't have that natural cooing instinct. I held her for a few minutes, told her she was cute, she really is, then passed her to our cousin Marissa, who immediately started gushing over her dimples. Now, here's where things went sideways. Nathan was joking about how much hair Ella had, saying, she came out looking like a little rock star. Way more hair than I had. Then Mom chimed in with, yeah. You were my bald little alien for the first 2 years, everyone laughed. Then Brittany, in that half-proud, half-defensive tone new parents sometimes get, said, well, she definitely takes after my side. We all have thick hair, good skin, good genes. It was a totally normal brag, no big deal. I wasn't even thinking when I said it. I just laughed and said, yeah, maybe she'll get your family's hair and Nathan's stubborn streak. It's genetic, I swear. It was meant to be lighthearted. I even smiled, but Brittany's face immediately changed, like she'd been slapped. She said, what's that supposed to mean? I froze for a second. That stubbornness runs in our family. It's a joke. She frowned and said, so, you're saying my daughter's going to be difficult? Because she's got Nathan's genes? At this point, everyone kind of went quiet. Mom tried to smooth things over by laughing it off, saying, oh honey, we all know Nathan's a handful. That's just part of being a Monroe. But Brittany wouldn't let it go, she said. I just don't appreciate comments about my baby's genetics like she's some experiment. Nathan looked mortified. He muttered something like, Britt, relax. And that set her off even more. She stood up holding the baby and said, I'm not overreacting. This is exactly the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Your family doesn't respect boundaries. She left the room and went to the car. Nathan stayed behind for maybe 2 minutes. Apologized to everyone, and said he had to go. Dinner kind of died after that. I texted him later that night saying, hey, I didn't mean anything by that, you know me. I joke about everything. He didn't respond until the next day, saying, I know, but Brittany's really upset. She feels like you were implying something negative about Ella, I said. How could I possibly be implying something negative about a baby? He just said, she's protective right now. She's adjusting, so I let it go. Or I tried to. But then, a few days later, I found out through Mom that Brittany told her she doesn't want me around the baby until I can learn to be respectful. That honestly stung, because I've never said or done anything mean to her. Or the baby. It's not like I joked about looks, or intelligence, or anything remotely offensive. I literally said it's genetic. Mom's caught in the middle. She told me privately that she thinks Brittany's postpartum emotions are through the roof. But she doesn't want to say anything to cause more tension. My Aunt Carla said Brittany has always been hypersensitive and loves being the center of attention. My cousin Marissa texted me later saying, "You didn't do anything wrong, but you're not going to win this one. Just apologize to keep the peace." So I did. I texted Brittany, saying, "I'm sorry if my comment upset you. It wasn't meant that way. I love you guys, and I adore Ella," she replied with a curt, "Thank you. I just think we need some space right now. That was a week ago. Nathan still hasn't reached out. Mom says he's probably just trying to keep the peace at home, but it still feels like I'm being iced out over nothing. Here's what's bothering me most. I can't tell if this is just postpartum sensitivity, or if Brittany genuinely doesn't like me and is using this as an excuse to push me out. There's always been this low-key tension between us. Like she's polite, but she has this look when I say something sarcastic, like she's waiting for me to mess up. And now I feel like I did, even though I didn't mean to. Part of me wants to just let it blow over. But the other part of me is hurt that I might not get to be in my niece's life because of one misunderstood joke. I've replayed that night 100 times in my head, trying to see it from her perspective, and I still can't find the malice she apparently saw. My friends, Caleb and Jess, both told me Brittany's behavior sounds extreme. Caleb said, "That's not postpartum, that's control." Jess, who actually has a baby herself, said, "She's probably just overwhelmed and reading into everything. Give her space." So that's what I've been doing, giving her space, but honestly, it sucks. Every photo Nathan posts of Ella feels like a little stab. I used to be able to joke with him about everything, and now every message feels filtered, cautious. It's crazy how fast things can shift. A single sentence can apparently rewrite how someone sees you. I keep wondering, if I'd just said anything else, or nothing at all, would things still be normal? Or was this always going to happen eventually? Because the more I think about it, the more I realize that maybe Brittany never really wanted to blend into our family's humor, our energy, our bluntness. Maybe she wanted Nathan to separate from us, to have his own unit, and maybe, subconsciously, she's using this to build that distance. It sounds paranoid, I know, but when you've known your brother your whole life and suddenly you feel like a guest in his story, it messes with your head. I don't know what happens next. I'm trying to be patient, to respect her boundaries, to not stir anything up. But I miss my brother. I miss being able to joke around without feeling like I'm under surveillance. It's wild how one genetic comment turned into a Cold War. But maybe the real genetics at play here are the Monroe family curse. We never know when to shut up. It's been a little over 4 months since I made that post about the genetic comment that somehow detonated my entire family dynamic. I figured it was time for an update because honestly, the situation evolved in ways I didn't expect, both better and worse. Right after that dinner blow-up, communication between me and Nathan basically went radio silent. I sent him a couple of messages checking in, trying to sound casual, "Hey, how's work?" or "Hope Ella's doing good." But most of them got those short, polite responses that screamed, "Don't engage." It stung because we used to text almost every day. Now I felt like some distant cousin, rather than his sibling. I tried to respect Brittany's space request, even though I didn't really know what that meant. No texting her, no jokes, no baby gifts, no showing up at Mom's when they were there. It felt like being exiled from my own family. Then one afternoon in late March, Mom called me from her car, whisper angry, which is never a good sign. Apparently, Nathan and Brittany had shown up for Sunday dinner unannounced, and Mom casually mentioned missing me. Brittany supposedly sighed and said, "It's just hard to be around people who don't take boundaries seriously," Mom said. She nearly spit out her coffee. I asked Mom if she defended me, and she said, "I tried, but you know how tense things get. I didn't want to make it worse." I told her I understood, but it still made my chest tight for the rest of the day. For a while, I started wondering if I should just apologize again, like a big grand gesture, even if I didn't think I'd done anything wrong. But my friend Jess talked me down. She said, "You already apologized once. If you keep apologizing, you're teaching them that they can weaponize hurt feelings whenever they want." That stuck with me. Then, out of nowhere, Nathan texted me one Friday night in April. "Hey, we're doing Ella's baptism next month. Brittany wants a small ceremony. Mom's invited. I think you should come too." I sat staring at the message for a good 10 minutes. I wasn't sure if this was a peace offering or a setup, but I decided to go. When the day came, I put on my most neutral outfit. Nothing too flashy, nothing too casual, and brought a soft baby blanket I'd bought weeks earlier but hadn't had a chance to give them. When I walked into the church hall, Brittany gave me this polite, strained smile. Nathan hugged me quickly, like we were co-workers instead of brothers. The ceremony itself was nice. Ella was adorable, cooing through the whole thing. When it was over, I went to hand Brittany the blanket and said, "I just thought she might like this for naps." She looked at it, hesitated, and then said, "Thanks. That's thoughtful." No smile. Just that it was progress, I guess. Afterwards, during the small reception, Nathan pulled me aside. He looked exhausted. He said, "Britt's still touchy about that night. She felt like you were implying our family's, I don't know, flawed. She's sensitive about genetic stuff because her mom has some autoimmune thing, and it freaks her out thinking she might have passed something down." That was news to me. No one had ever mentioned that. I just stood there stunned and said, "I swear I didn't mean it that way. I'd never joke about something like that." He nodded, rubbed his face, and said, "I know, I really do. But she's been on edge since the baby. I'm trying to keep everything calm at home." And I could tell he meant it. He looked like a man walking on eggshells. We talked for a few minutes more, mostly about work and sports, before Brittany came over holding Ella. She said, "We're heading out. It was nice to see you." I smiled, said, "You too." And that was that. No big reconciliation, no dramatic forgiveness scene, just a quiet acknowledgement that maybe we weren't enemies anymore. Over the next couple months, Nathan started texting more. Little things, funny memes, random updates, photos of Ella crawling. He even invited me over to their house in June for a chill afternoon. I accepted. Cautiously when I got there, Brittany seemed different, tired, but softer. She actually handed me the baby without hesitation and said, "She's teething, so good luck." We laughed. And for the first time in almost a year, it felt normal. Later, while Nathan was outside grilling, Brittany and I were alone in the kitchen. She said quietly, "I overreacted that night. I know you weren't trying to be mean. I just wasn't in a good headspace," I told her. "Hey, I get it, new mom. Sleep deprivation, family dinner, honestly. That's a recipe for disaster." She actually laughed at that. Then she said something that stuck with me. "You're funny when you're not defensive," I almost joked back. But I decided to just smile and say, "I'm working on that." After that day, things slowly started thawing. We text occasionally, mostly baby updates, but it's friendly now. I'm even invited to Ella's first birthday next month. It took me months to realize how deep the miscommunication went. Brittany wasn't mad about the words I said. She was mad about feeling judged, and I wasn't mad about her reaction. I was hurt that my family didn't have my back. We were all talking around each other instead of to each other, Mom keeps saying. Maybe this baby brought the family closer after all. I roll my eyes. But deep down, I think she might be right. Looking back, I don't regret saying it's genetic. It really wasn't a cruel comment, but I do regret how quickly I dug in afterward. Sometimes, being technically right doesn't matter if it makes people feel wronged. The whole thing taught me that not every battle needs a winner. Some just need time, patience, and a willingness to shut up long enough for everyone's emotions to cool off. So yeah, things are better now. I get to see my niece again. Nathan and I are rebuilding, and Brittany, well, she's actually growing on me. I think we're finally starting to understand each other, even if we'll never share the same sense of humor. And if I ever feel tempted to joke about genes again, I'll keep that one. Recessive. It's been about 18 months since my last post, and I can't believe how much life has changed since then, honestly. When I first wrote about the whole "it's genetic" debacle, I thought I'd torched my relationship with my brother forever. But now, things have come full circle in a way I never saw coming. Ella just turned 2 last weekend. The birthday party was chaos in the best way. Toddler chaos, sticky cupcakes, balloons everywhere, and half the adults secretly sneaking off for sanity breaks on the porch. But for me, it felt like a milestone, not just for Ella, but for the family as a whole. Because for the first time in a long time, everyone was there. Me, Nathan, Brittany, my parents, Brittany's parents, even my Aunt Carol, who swore off family drama 2 years ago but showed up with an entire tray of homemade brownies. And the weirdest part? Nobody fought. Not one sideways comment. Not one awkward silence. Just laughter, stories, and a very determined toddler trying to feed cake to the dog. If you'd told me 2 years ago that I'd be sitting at Brittany's dining table helping her blow up pink and gold balloons while she vented about how her husband, my brother, had forgotten to pick up the party favors, I would have laughed in your face. But that's exactly what happened. We've gone from tension-filled avoidance to casual, comfortable familiarity. The turning point, though, wasn't the baptism or even that summer cookout. It was last Christmas. We were all gathered at my parents' place, fire going, the usual chaos of wrapping paper and toy assembly. At one point, Nathan went to the garage to get something, and Brittany and I ended up alone in the living room. She was sitting on the floor next to Ella, who was wearing a Santa hat 3 sizes too big and trying to shove puzzle pieces into a toy drum. Out of nowhere, Brittany said, "You know, I think I blamed you because it was easier than admitting how scared I was." I didn't know what to say. I just looked at her, and she kept going. When Ella was born, she had to stay in the NICU for a week because of jaundice, and I remember the doctors throwing around words like monitoring and tests, and it terrified me. So when you made that joke, it hit every nerve I had. I thought you were making fun of the one thing I was already losing sleep over. She didn't cry, but her voice cracked a little. I told her I had no idea any of that happened, that nobody ever told me. She said, "Yeah, we didn't really talk about it." I was ashamed, like I'd already failed her somehow. We sat there for a while, just watching Ella bang on that toy drum, and it felt like years of tension just lifted. I said, "I never wanted to hurt you. I've always thought you're great for Nathan." She smiled, shook her head, and said, "You're lucky I finally believe that." That conversation changed everything. Since then, we've actually gotten close. She'll call me sometimes for random things. Advice about birthday gifts, recommendations for kids' shows, even complaining about Nathan's dad habits, apparently. He leaves socks everywhere. I've found myself becoming Uncle Luke, the goofball who brings messy toys and teaches Ella words her parents don't approve of. Nathan and I are solid again, too. We've got that easy banter back. We play golf once a month and talk about sports. Life, work, the usual, but every so often, he'll slip in something serious, like, "Hey, thanks for not giving up on us." It hits me every time. The biggest surprise, though, came this spring. I got a text from Brittany that just said, "So, Ella's going to be a big sister." I was shocked, in a good way. They hadn't told anyone yet, and she said she wanted me to be the first to know besides family. I asked her why, and she said, "Because you are family, and you've proven it." That one got me. Their new baby, a boy, was born a few weeks ago, Owen. I went to the hospital the day after he was born. Brittany was exhausted but glowing, and Nathan looked like a zombie with a smile. When I held Owen for the first time, I couldn't help but laugh and say, "I'm not making any genetic jokes this time." Brittany rolled her eyes and said, "Good. I don't think the nurses would appreciate your humor." We all laughed, and it felt like closure in its purest form. Not dramatic, not tearful, just peaceful. Mom told me later that she was proud of how I handled everything. She said, "You didn't double down, you didn't cut anyone off, you just waited it out." And she's right. I used to think standing your ground meant never backing down, but I've learned that sometimes real strength is just patience. I've also learned that family conflicts aren't always about what's said. They're about what's felt. Brittany didn't hear a joke, she heard fear. Nathan didn't hear me defending myself. He heard his brother refusing to understand. And I didn't hear their pain, I only heard rejection. Once we actually started listening, everything changed. Now, I babysit Ella at least twice a month. She calls me Unca Wook. We're working on the L sound, and she's obsessed with dinosaurs. Brittany says she's got my sarcastic streak, which I take full credit for. It's weird to think that one awkward dinner comment could have ended my relationship with them. And yet, in a strange way, it also reshaped it for the better. Because now, we've all learned how to be a little more patient, a little more open, and a lot more forgiving. Life's calmer these days. I'm dating someone new, Amanda. A nurse I met through a mutual friend. She met my family a few weeks ago. And Brittany actually texted me afterward saying, "She's great. Don't mess this up." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. If you'd told me back when I made that dumb, genetic joke that it would lead to stronger family bonds, I would have called you crazy, but here we are. So yeah, I guess that's the final update. Everyone's happy, everyone's healthy, and I'm grateful I didn't let pride ruin something that just needed time to heal. If there's one takeaway from all of this, it's this. Words matter, but grace matters more. You can't undo what you said, but you can always choose how you move forward. And for me, moving forward looks a lot like family dinners, toddler hugs, and an endless pile of plastic dinosaurs. Stories. Number 20. Why would my biological parents, who willingly gave me up, reach out to me? What's their goal? I never thought I'd be one of those people writing on Reddit about family drama. But here we are. I-29M was adopted when I was 6 months old. My adoptive parents, Mark and Susan, are honestly incredible people. The kind of parents people wish they had. My childhood was stable, warm, and honestly pretty unremarkable in the best way possible. I never felt unloved or unwanted. I knew I was adopted from a young age because my parents were always open about it. They told me I was chosen, not given up. And that line stuck with me. Still, as I got older, I couldn't help but wonder about my biological parents. It wasn't a burning curiosity, more like a quiet, what if? What if they looked like me? What if I had siblings? What if there was some tragic reason they gave me up that I just didn't know? But I never went digging. I figured they made their choice, and my life was good, so why complicate things? That all changed about 3 months ago. I got a letter in the mail, not an email. Not a phone call, a letter, handwritten, with my name and address in neat cursive on the envelope. I remember standing in my kitchen holding it like it might explode. The return address was from a small town in Wisconsin I'd never heard of. I opened it slowly, and at the top, it said, "Dear Eric, I know this must be a shock, but I'm your birth mother, Diane." I had to sit down. The letter went on to explain that she'd been a teenager when she got pregnant. 17, scared, living with strict religious parents. My birth father, Alan, was 19 at the time and apparently wanted to keep me, but her parents forced her to put me up for adoption. She said she'd thought about me every day since, that now, almost 30 years later, she and Alan had reconnected. Apparently they'd both gotten divorced in the last few years and decided they wanted to reach out to me. She wrote, "We'd love the chance to know you, even just as friends if that's all you're comfortable with." I read that letter about 10 times before I could even process it. My first reaction wasn't anger, it was confusion. They gave me up. They chose to let someone else raise me. Why now? Why after 3 decades? I didn't tell anyone for a week. I just kept the letter in my nightstand and tried to go about life like normal, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I eventually told my mom and dad. My dad was quiet for a long time, then said, "Whatever you decide, we'll support you, just be careful." My mom hugged me and said, "You don't owe them anything, and that's the thing." Part of me felt like I did owe them something. Not gratitude exactly, but maybe acknowledgement, like I wouldn't even exist without them. So who was I to ignore them? I decided to write back. I kept it simple. Thanked Diane for reaching out. Said I was open to a conversation, but wanted to take it slow. I gave her my email. She replied within a day. Her tone was warm, almost too warm. She told me how excited she was, how she'd always dreamed of this moment. She sent photos of her and Alan. Both looked like normal middle-aged people, smiling awkwardly in front of a house. Then she sent one of me as a baby. It was surreal. I'd never seen that photo before. I'd seen plenty from my adoption and childhood, but never one from before that. She told me she'd kept it all these years. We exchanged a few emails, and things stayed polite and cautious, until she asked if we could talk on the phone. I said yes. I figured hearing her voice might help me decide how I really felt. That first call was strange. She cried almost immediately. I didn't know what to do. I just sat there silent, while she sobbed about how sorry she was, how she never stopped loving me, how she'd wanted to find me sooner, but didn't want to disrupt my life. Then Alan got on the line. He was calmer. He said he'd always wondered what kind of man I'd turn out to be. He asked about my job, where I lived. If I was married, I'm not, though I've been dating someone named Tara for 2 years. They were both trying so hard to sound normal, but everything about it felt unnatural. I was talking to strangers who created me. Over the next few weeks, we kept in touch. Little things at first, emails, texts, occasional phone calls. They sent old photos, stories about high school, even a picture of the hospital where I was born. I'll admit, part of me was fascinated. Seeing people who looked like me, the same eyes, same smile, was eerie but comforting. Then things got weird. Diane started asking about my parents. At first, it was innocent curiosity. What are they like? But then she started slipping in comments like, "I hope they treated you well." And, "It must have been strange growing up with people who weren't your real family." That one made my stomach drop. I told her, as gently as I could, that Mark and Susan are my real family, that I love them, and I'm grateful every day for the life they gave me. She immediately apologized, said she didn't mean it that way, but after that, I couldn't unhear it. A week later, she asked if I'd consider visiting them. She said they'd even pay for the flight. I told her I'd think about it. When I told my parents, Mom went quiet again and Dad just said, "It's your decision, son. But remember, people's motives aren't always as pure as they sound." I didn't want to believe that. But then Alan emailed me separately, something he hadn't done before. He said Diane had been struggling financially and that reconnecting with me has given her something to live for. He mentioned something about medical bills and how family supports each other. That's when my guard shot up. I didn't respond to that email. I took a step back, stopped texting for a while. Diane noticed right away. She sent a long message saying she felt like she was losing me all over again, that she didn't mean for things to move too fast, and that she'd never ask for anything but my time. I didn't know what to think. Were they manipulating me? Were they genuinely trying to reconnect? Or were they just looking for help? Financial? Emotional? Whatever? Tara, my girlfriend, told me I was being too soft. "You don't owe them a thing," she said. "They made their choices. You don't have to carry their guilt now." But I couldn't shake the part of me that wanted to understand them, to know why they gave me up, to maybe find closure a few weeks ago. I finally asked Diane straight up, "Why now? After 30 years, why reach out?" She paused for a long time, then said, "Because I didn't want to die wondering if you hated me." That hit hard. It wasn't manipulative. It wasn't emotional blackmail. It was just painfully honest. I told her I didn't hate her. I told her I'd had a good life, that I was happy, and that maybe she didn't need to carry that guilt anymore. We haven't talked much since then. She still sends the occasional thinking of you text, but I can tell she's trying to give me space. Alan, too, I'm still figuring out how I feel. I don't know if I want a relationship with them, but I also don't want to close the door completely. It's weird having this entire second set of parents hovering at the edge of my life, waiting to see if I'll let them in. What's their goal? I'm still not sure. Maybe it's love, maybe it's guilt, maybe it's just human instinct, to reach out to the thing you once lost. All I know is, for the first time, I'm realizing that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, and who makes you feel safe. And in that sense, my parents, the ones who raised me, have already given me everything I'll ever need. It's been about 8 months since I posted about my biological parents reaching out after almost 30 years of no contact. Back then, I was torn between curiosity and caution, trying to figure out if they genuinely wanted to reconnect, or if there were other motives behind it. A lot has happened since then. I wasn't sure if I'd ever actually meet them. Part of me thought the story would just fade out into quiet, occasional texts. But life has a weird way of pushing you toward things you've been avoiding. It started in January. I got a call from Alan. He rarely called. Usually it was Diane who texted or emailed. So I knew something was off. He told me Diane had been hospitalized with pneumonia, that it was pretty bad, and that she kept asking for me. I didn't even think. I just said, "What hospital?" Tara was at my apartment when I hung up. I told her what happened, and she just nodded and said, "Then go." She even helped me pack. That's one of the things I love about her. She doesn't tell me what I should do. She just helps me do what I already know I will. I booked a last-minute flight to Wisconsin the next morning. The whole way there, I felt like my brain was split in two. One part scared, one part angry. I kept replaying everything in my head. The letter, the calls, the weird money comment from Alan, the guilt trips, the apologies. I didn't know what version of them I'd find waiting for me. When I finally walked into that hospital room, all that noise in my head went silent. Diane looked smaller than I expected, pale, thin, with oxygen tubes in her nose. But when she saw me, her face lit up in a way that I'll never forget. She reached for my hand immediately, and for a second all the awkwardness vanished. It was like instinct. I just took her hand. She started crying, whispering, "I can't believe you came." Alan was sitting beside her bed. He looked worn out, older than in the photos he'd sent me. When he stood up, we hugged, awkwardly, like two people who weren't sure how to do it right. He just said, "Thank you for coming, Eric. It means a lot." For the next few days I stayed in Wisconsin. I didn't tell many people, just Tara and my parents. My mom actually texted me before I left and said, "No matter what happens, we'll still be here when you get back. Go see what you need to see." That kind of permission, it meant more than I can explain. At first, I just sat with Diane while she slept. Alan would bring me bad coffee from the cafeteria. and we'd talk quietly about small things. Weather, sports, whatever. I was still cautious, but over time, the walls started to come down. One night, Alan told me the full story. Apparently, when Diane got pregnant with me, her parents wanted her to give me up immediately. Alan wanted to fight it, but he was young, broke, and scared. Her father threatened to cut her off completely if she kept me. She went along with it because she thought it was her only option. A few years later, Alan married someone else. Had a son, divorced. Diane married a man who didn't want kids. They lost touch for decades. Then, during the pandemic, they both reconnected through social media, started talking again, and eventually met up. He said it was like picking up a thread that had been dropped for 25 years. When they started talking about regrets, my name came up, Alan said. We didn't reach out because we needed something from you. We reached out because not knowing was eating her alive. That was the first time I started to really understand it. When Diane woke up later that night, she smiled and said, "You have his eyes." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. We talked for hours about my childhood, my parents, what kind of kid I was. She listened like someone trying to memorize every detail of a story they missed. The last day before I flew home, she gave me an envelope. Inside was a small locket, she said. "I wore this when I was pregnant with you. I always hoped someday I'd give it to you." I didn't know what to say. I just hugged her for the first time in my life. It felt natural to call her mom, even though she wasn't the woman who raised me. I didn't say it out loud. I don't think I could. But I thought it. When I got back home, I felt emotionally wrecked, but lighter somehow. Tara met me at the airport and just hugged me for a long time. I thought that might be the end of it. But a few weeks later, Diane passed away. Alan called me in tears. I hadn't even unpacked from my trip yet. He said she'd gotten worse unexpectedly, that she'd gone peacefully, and that she'd been holding the photo of me he'd printed out from one of our emails. I sat on my couch and just cried. For a woman I didn't know most of my life, but who somehow still felt like a part of me. I went to the funeral. I debated not going. I didn't want to make things weird for her family. But Alan insisted. "She'd want you there," he said. It was small, mostly quiet. A few cousins, some old friends, a handful of church members. Alan introduced me to everyone as our son Eric. That hit me right in the chest. No one questioned it. No one looked at me funny. They just smiled softly, like they understood after the service. Alan and I sat outside the church. He told me he'd been thinking a lot about what to do next. Whether to stay in Wisconsin, whether to move closer to his other son, Adam. Then he looked at me and said, "You don't have to keep in touch, but I hope you will. You're my kid too, whether you want to be or not." I told him I would, and I meant it. Now, months later, we talk every couple of weeks. Sometimes it's just quick check-ins. Sometimes we actually have long, real conversations about life. He's not trying to replace anyone, and I'm not trying to fill some hole either, but we've built something. Balanced. My parents met him. Actually, a few weeks ago, Alan came out to visit. I was terrified about that. Worried it would be awkward or weird, but it wasn't. My mom hugged him the second she saw him. My dad shook his hand and said, "You helped bring him into the world. We took it from there," Alan just said. "And you did a hell of a job." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Sometimes I still think about Diane. I keep her letter and the locket in a box on my desk. When I look at it, I don't feel resentment anymore. Just gratitude. That I got the chance to meet her, even briefly, and tell her I was okay, I guess, in the end. Their goal wasn't as complicated as I thought. They didn't want money or validation, they just wanted peace. To know that the biggest decision of their lives didn't ruin mine, and maybe that's all I wanted too. If anyone reading this ever gets that letter, that message, that out-of-nowhere contact from people you thought were gone forever, I can't tell you what the right answer is. I don't know if meeting them will heal you or hurt you, but I can tell you this. You'll never regret choosing compassion over fear, because even if it doesn't fix the past, it gives it meaning, and for me, that's enough. It's been just over 2 years since I first posted about my biological parents reaching out. I didn't plan on writing another update, but someone messaged me last week saying they stumbled on my story and wanted to know how things turned out. I figured maybe I owed the universe a little closure. The same kind of closure I finally found for myself. Life looks very different now. I'm still with Tara. Actually, we got engaged last spring. She proposed to me, which feels fitting somehow. We were hiking in Oregon, and she stopped halfway up the trail, pulled out a ring, and said, "I'm tired of waiting for you to get around to it." That's her in a nutshell. Decisive, warm, and completely herself. Alan came to the engagement party, so did my parents. If you'd told me 3 years ago that all of them would be in the same room, eating barbecue, laughing together, and telling stories about me, I would have thought you were out of your mind, but there they were. My mom and Alan actually got along, which I think surprised them both. They ended up sitting on the porch for an hour talking about gardening and 80s music. My dad grilled. Tara's parents brought her favorite wine, and for a moment, it felt like there was no awkward history left. Just life happening. Alan still calls every few weeks. Sometimes he gets emotional. He's a lot more open with his feelings now. I think losing Diane changed him, he told me once. I spent half my life running from the hardest things. I don't want to do that anymore. He's seeing someone now. Her name's Joanne. She's kind, smart, a little sarcastic, and she teases him in the exact way he needs. The first time I met her, she said, "You must be the son he can't stop bragging about." I laughed so hard because Alan turned red. It's weird seeing him in this new chapter of his life. But it also makes me happy. He deserves something good after so much regret. Every now and then, I'll catch him looking at me like he's still trying to make sense of it. Like he's surprised I exist. But then he'll say something like, "You have your mother's laugh." And I'll realize he's not trying to understand me. He's just remembering her. Tara and I decided to visit Diane's grave together last fall. I hadn't been back since the funeral. It was a small cemetery outside Madison. Quiet and full of trees. We brought flowers, lilies, because that's what Alan said she liked. I stood there for a long time, not really sure what to say. Eventually, I just said, "Hey, I'm okay." "We're all okay." It felt like the right thing to say. On the flight home, Tara asked if I ever wished I'd met Diane sooner. I thought about it for a while before saying, "Yeah, sometimes, but maybe if I had, it wouldn't have meant as much." I think there's something powerful about timing, about people coming back into your life exactly when you're ready for them. As for my parents, the ones who raised me, things between us are stronger than ever. I think this whole experience made me appreciate them in ways I hadn't before. My mom told me that watching me meet Alan and Diane reminded her of how much love can stretch. She said, "Family isn't a limited resource, Eric. There's always room for more if you let there be." She's right. They even asked Alan to come to the wedding next summer. That nearly broke me, my dad said. "He's part of your story too." "We'd like him there," Alan cried when I told him. I still keep the locket Diane gave me on my desk. I don't wear it, but sometimes I hold it when I'm working late or thinking too much. It's become this quiet reminder of her, of everything that's happened, of how much one person's decision can ripple across decades. There's something healing about understanding where you come from. For most of my life, I thought being adopted meant choosing one family over another. But it's not like that. It's just more love in more directions. I don't feel broken anymore. I don't feel like something was taken from me. I feel complete, finally. Not because I found some missing piece, but because I stopped trying to fill a space that wasn't empty in the first place. The day I left Wisconsin after Diane's funeral, Alan hugged me and said, "You don't owe me anything." Son, now 2 years later, I realize I don't owe him, but I want him in my life anyway. That's the difference. If you're reading this because you're adopted, or because someone from your past has resurfaced and you don't know what to do, I can't give you advice. I can only say that closure doesn't always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from connection, from giving someone, or yourself, permission to be human. That's what this whole journey has been for me. Learning that forgiveness isn't always about saying, "It's okay." Sometimes it's just saying, "It happened, and I'm still here. So yeah, I'm still here, happier than I've ever been." And maybe that's the best ending this story could ever have. Stories number 21. My mom keeps saying I stink even though I shower twice a day. I 22M don't usually post on Reddit, but after what happened last weekend, I've been losing sleep trying to figure out if I overreacted or if my mom really pushed me too far. For context, I've always been kind of a neat freak. Not in an obsessive way, just particular. I shower twice a day. Once in the morning before work, and again at night before bed. I use deodorant, cologne, clean clothes every day, do laundry twice a week. I don't smoke, don't really drink, and I've never had an issue with hygiene. But apparently, to my mom, I've always smelled weird. It's been like this since I was a teenager. I remember being 15 and her barging into my room saying, "It smells like a boy's locker room in here," even though I'd literally just finished cleaning. Back then, I'd shrug it off or light a candle just to make her stop nagging. But lately, it's gotten worse. I moved out 2 years ago to live in an apartment across town. My mom, Laura, calls me a few times a week, and we still see each other for Sunday dinners at her place. It's usually fine. She's a little controlling, sure, but she's still my mom. Or at least it was fine until a few months ago when she started this whole "you smell bad" thing again. It started innocently enough. We were at dinner, and she wrinkled her nose mid-conversation. "Honey, did you forget to shower today?" I laughed, thinking she was joking, and said, "No, Mom. I literally showered an hour ago." She looked unconvinced and said, "Well, something smells off. That should have been it." But it wasn't. Every week after that, she'd make a comment. Sometimes it was subtle. "Are you sure your clothes are clean?" And sometimes it was more direct. "You need to see a doctor. Maybe there's something wrong with your sweat glands." At first, I tried to take it in stride. I changed detergents, I bought new deodorant, I even switched my soap twice, but nothing changed her reaction. She'd still sniff when she hugged me, grimace a little and say something like, "I don't know what it is, but you just have this smell." I started to get paranoid. I asked my roommate Connor one night if I smelled bad. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head and said, "Dude, you smell like Tide and Irish Spring. You're fine." So, I thought maybe my mom was just being, well, my mom, she's always been the kind of person who fixates on small things until they become big things. But the last time I visited, it went too far. I showed up for dinner last Sunday. As soon as I walked through the door, she hugged me and froze. "Oh my God, Eric, you stink." I immediately stepped back, embarrassed. "Mom, I showered twice." She started waving her hand in front of her face dramatically. "I can't even, you smell sour or something. Are you eating differently?" My dad, Robert, was sitting at the table and sighed. "Laura, knock it off," but she wouldn't. She followed me into the kitchen, still talking. "Maybe you need to see a dermatologist, you know. Sometimes people have bacteria that—" "Mom, stop," I said, trying to keep calm. She kept going. "I'm serious. It's not normal to smell like that when you just showered." That's when I lost it. I slammed my hand on the counter and yelled, "Mom! Leave me the hell alone." Everything went silent. My dad froze. My mom's face fell and she just stared at me. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. She whispered, "You don't have to be so nasty." I just grabbed my coat and left. Didn't even eat dinner. When I got home, I showered again, mostly out of frustration, and sat on my bed replaying it over and over. I felt guilty. I'd never yelled at her like that before. But at the same time, I felt humiliated. I'm an adult. I take care of myself, and she made me feel like some filthy kid who doesn't know what soap is. Later that night, my dad called. He said Mom was upset, crying, saying I blew up over nothing. I told him I'd had enough, that I'm not going to be made to feel disgusting every time I visit. He sighed and said, "I get it, son. She just doesn't know when to quit sometimes." I haven't talked to her since. It's been 5 days. She's texted a few times, short messages like, "Are you okay?" and "We need to talk." I haven't responded yet because I honestly don't know what to say. I know she means well. At least I think she does. But it's exhausting. I'm starting to wonder if this is about something else. Like control or her needing to feel relevant in my life. Because I can't explain it any other way. I even went to my doctor 2 days ago. Just to be sure, I told her what was happening. And she laughed and said, "You're one of the cleanest patients I've seen. You smell like soap and fabric softener." I almost cried out of relief and frustration. So, yeah, I yelled at my mom. I lost my cool. But I don't know what else I could have done at that point. When someone keeps poking at the same wound over and over, eventually you snap, "I love her, but I need space right now. Maybe forever if this keeps up." Because no matter how many showers I take, I'm starting to realize it's not about me smelling bad. It's about her needing to find something wrong. And I can't be that thing anymore. It's been about 6 months since I posted about yelling at my mom after she wouldn't stop saying I smelled bad. Even though I shower twice a day, a lot has happened since then. And it's honestly been one of the weirdest, most emotionally confusing experiences of my life. After I wrote that post, I ignored my mom for a few weeks. I didn't block her, but I stopped replying to her texts. I thought she might back off after realizing how much it was bothering me. Instead, she doubled down. She started leaving voicemails. Long ones, some apologetic, some defensive. One of them said, "Eric, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but I just don't understand how you don't smell what I smell." Another said, "I think something's wrong, honey. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just worried." At first I was angry all over again. I told myself she was being controlling, dramatic. manipulative. The usual patterns she's had my whole life. But then something about that second voicemail stuck with me. The tone wasn't mean, it was scared. Eventually I called her. I figured if I didn't clear the air, no pun intended, this was going to eat at both of us. When she picked up, she sounded cautious. Eric? Yeah, Mom, it's me. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Oh, thank God. We talked for a while. Mostly about surface-level stuff. Work, my roommate, family updates. Then she said quietly, "Can I ask you something without you getting mad?" I hesitated, but said yes. "Do you smell anything strange in your apartment? Like mildew or something sour?" I told her no, that Connor and I keep it clean. She sighed and said, "I don't know what's wrong with me then. I swear I keep smelling something, even when you're not here." That's when I realized this wasn't about me at all. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours. She told me she's been noticing weird smells around her house for months. Burnt toast, chemical smells, random sour odors, even when my dad couldn't smell anything. At first, she thought she was losing her mind. Then she thought maybe it was the house or something in the vents, but after our fight, she said it got worse. She admitted, crying, that she'd started associating the smell with me. Not because I actually stank, but because she smelled it most when she was anxious or upset, and those emotions reminded her of worrying about me growing up. She said, "It's like my brain just linked the two together, and I can't separate it anymore." That broke me a little. After we hung up, I called my dad. He confirmed everything. He said she'd been complaining about phantom smells for almost a year, but refused to see a doctor because she thought people would think she was crazy. He said she's been more forgetful lately. 2. Misplacing keys, repeating herself. That's when I insisted she go to a doctor. Fast forward a few weeks, and they finally got some answers. My mom was diagnosed with something called phantosmia, a condition where you smell things that aren't actually there. Sometimes it's caused by sinus issues, but in her case, it was linked to early-stage neurological changes. The doctor said it could be an early sign of a neurodegenerative condition like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, but they weren't sure yet. When I found out, I felt like the world tilted. I'd spent months angry at her for something she couldn't control. I went over to visit that weekend. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything had settled on her shoulders. But when I walked in, she smiled and said, "You smell good." We both laughed and cried at the same time. Since then, things have shifted a lot between us. I've been going over once a week to help around the house. Cooking, organizing, sometimes just sitting with her. She's on medication now that helps reduce the phantom smells, and therapy has helped her anxiety too. There are still days she says something smells off, but it's less frequent. And now, instead of getting defensive, I just say, "Okay, Mom, let's open a window." The weirdest part is how much our relationship has healed through all of this. I think for the first time, she sees me as an adult, not just as her kid to criticize, but as someone who can actually help her. There was this moment last month that I'll never forget. I was helping her fold laundry, and she said, "You know, when you yelled at me that day, it hurt. But I think it was what I needed. It made me realize something wasn't right." I told her I was sorry. She said, "I'm sorry too." And that was that. My dad, Robert, has been incredible through all of this. He told me privately that he'd been trying to convince her to see a doctor for a while, but she only agreed after she thought she'd driven me away. I think part of him blames himself, but none of this is anyone's fault. Even Connor got involved. He came over one weekend to help install air purifiers in their house. My mom insisted on feeding us lasagna, like nothing was wrong, and kept saying, "Now, my house smells like something good for a change. It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but it's better." If there's anything I've learned from this, it's that sometimes the people who hurt you aren't trying to. They just don't know how to explain what's happening to them. And it's easy to take that personally until you see the bigger picture. I'm grateful I didn't let that fight be the last conversation we ever had. She still teases me sometimes, says I use too much cologne now. I'll just smile and say, "At least you can smell it, right?" She always laughs. I don't know what the future holds with her condition, but I'm not wasting time being angry anymore. I'm just going to make sure she knows I love her, even when she's convinced the world smells weird. Because the truth is, she doesn't stink. She's just human, and so am I. It's been about 2 years since I last posted about my mom's "you smell bad" comments that turned out to be part of a neurological issue. I wasn't sure I'd ever write another update, but tonight, sitting in my apartment with the window open and the smell of rain drifting in, it just felt right. Life has changed in ways I couldn't have imagined back then. Some of it's hard, some of it's beautiful, but all of it feels real in a way that only comes when you've gone through something that completely resets how you see the people you love. My mom's condition has progressed, not dramatically, but noticeably. After the phantasmia diagnosis, her neurologist kept running tests, and last fall she was officially diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's. It was a gut punch, even though we kind of knew it was coming. She's only 56. For the first few months after the diagnosis, she took it like a champ. She was scared, sure, but she handled it with her usual stubborn humor. When the doctor explained that loss of smell can be one of the first symptoms, she actually laughed and said, "So, all that time nagging Eric about stinking was just my brain short-circuiting?" We all laughed, but there was sadness underneath it. Still, that moment, her being able to joke about it, changed something between us. These days, she still has her personality, her sass, and her warmth, but she moves slower. Some mornings, her hands tremble when she holds her coffee mug. My dad, Robert, retired early so he could be home with her more. He's become her rock. Patient, gentle, always finding new ways to make her laugh. Watching them together has been weirdly healing. Growing up, they argued a lot, but now it's like they've rediscovered each other. I visit at least twice a week now. I usually cook dinner when I'm there, because her sense of smell is mostly gone and her sense of taste is fading too. I make big, flavorful meals, spicy chili, garlic-heavy pasta, anything that makes her feel something. She'll take a bite, smile faintly and say, "I can't taste it, but I can feel the love." It sounds cheesy, but it gets me every time. We've learned to communicate differently. When she's having a rough day, she'll just say, "Smell day," which means she's overwhelmed by phantom scents, or can't smell anything at all. On those days, we watch movies, fold laundry, or just sit outside. Sometimes she'll ask me to describe what I smell: rain, fresh-cut grass, barbecue from a neighbor's yard. And she'll close her eyes and say, "That sounds nice." There's something profoundly humbling about narrating the world for someone who can't experience it the same way anymore. It's taught me patience I didn't know I had. A few months ago, we went through all her old photo albums. She pulled out a picture of me at age 6, covered in mud, holding a frog. She laughed so hard she started crying. Then she said, "I used to tell you that you stank that day too." I said, "Well, at least that time you were right. I never thought we'd be able to joke about any of this, but somehow we can." As for me, I've changed a lot too. I've learned that resentment can melt away when you start seeing people not as the roles they play in your life, mom, dad, son, but as human beings doing the best they can with what they've got. My mom isn't just the woman who drove me crazy about smells. She's a person who's scared, strong, loving, and trying to navigate a brain that doesn't always cooperate. I've also started therapy, partly to process the guilt I carried from our fight, but also to prepare for what's ahead. Parkinson's isn't linear. Some days she's sharp and full of energy, and other days it's like the world is moving faster than she can keep up with. I don't want to take any of those good days for granted. Last month was her birthday. We threw a small backyard party, just family and a few neighbors. I grilled burgers while my dad played 80s hits on the speaker. When everyone sang happy birthday, my mom looked around and said, "You know, for someone who can't smell a thing, I sure feel surrounded by love." That line stuck with me. After everyone left, I sat with her on the porch. She was tired but peaceful. She took my hand and said, "You used to think I was obsessed with how you smelled. I was, in a way. You were growing up so fast, and every time I hugged you, I wanted to hold on to something familiar, Smell is memory, you know? I think I was scared to lose that. I didn't even know how to respond. I just hugged her and said, "You'll never lose me, Mom." Sometimes, I still catch myself checking how I smell before I go over there. Old habits die hard. But now, it's not about insecurity. It's about ritual. A reminder of where this all started, and how far we've come. My dad says that love is just paying attention, and I think he's right. I pay attention now in ways I never did before. To how she moves, what makes her laugh, when she gets quiet, and she pays attention too. Last week, she looked at me while I was making dinner and said, "You look tired, honey. You working too much?" I said, "Maybe a little." She smiled and said, "Go shower and relax. You'll feel better." We both burst out laughing. That one felt like a full circle moment. I don't know how much time we have before things change again. Parkinson's is unpredictable. But I do know this. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm just grateful for the chance to know her like this, flaws and all, and to finally understand that love sometimes looks like frustration, fear, and even misplaced criticism. If I could go back and talk to myself from that first post, the version of me who stormed out of her house, humiliated and furious, I'd tell him, "You're not crazy and you're not dirty, but she's not your enemy either. She's just scared." That's when I realized this wasn't about me at all. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours. She told me she's been noticing weird smells around her house for months. Burnt toast, chemical smells, random sour odors, even when my dad couldn't smell anything. At first, she thought she was losing her mind. Then she thought maybe it was the house or something in the vents, but after our fight, she said it got worse. She admitted, crying, that she'd started associating the smell with me. Not because I actually stank, but because she smelled it most when she was anxious or upset, and those emotions reminded her of worrying about me growing up. She said, "It's like my brain just linked the two together, and I can't separate it anymore." That broke me a little. After we hung up, I called my dad. He confirmed everything. He said she'd been complaining about phantom smells for almost a year, but refused to see a doctor because she thought people would think she was crazy. He said she's been more forgetful lately. 2. Misplacing keys, repeating herself. That's when I insisted she go to a doctor. Fast forward a few weeks, and they finally got some answers. My mom was diagnosed with something called phantosmia, a condition where you smell things that aren't actually there. Sometimes it's caused by sinus issues, but in her case, it was linked to early-stage neurological changes. The doctor said it could be an early sign of a neurodegenerative condition like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, but they weren't sure yet. When I found out, I felt like the world tilted. I'd spent months angry at her for something she couldn't control. I went over to visit that weekend. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything had settled on her shoulders. But when I walked in, she smiled and said, "You smell good." We both laughed and cried at the same time. Since then, things have shifted a lot between us. I've been going over once a week to help around the house. Cooking, organizing, sometimes just sitting with her. She's on medication now that helps reduce the phantom smells, and therapy has helped her anxiety too. There are still days she says something smells off, but it's less frequent. And now, instead of getting defensive, I just say, "Okay, Mom, let's open a window." The weirdest part is how much our relationship has healed through all of this. I think for the first time, she sees me as an adult, not just as her kid to criticize, but as someone who can actually help her. There was this moment last month that I'll never forget. I was helping her fold laundry, and she said, "You know, when you yelled at me that day, it hurt. But I think it was what I needed. It made me realize something wasn't right." I told her I was sorry. She said, "I'm sorry too." And that was that. My dad, Robert, has been incredible through all of this. He told me privately that he'd been trying to convince her to see a doctor for a while, but she only agreed after she thought she'd driven me away. I think part of him blames himself, but none of this is anyone's fault. Even Connor got involved. He came over one weekend to help install air purifiers in their house. My mom insisted on feeding us lasagna, like nothing was wrong, and kept saying, "Now, my house smells like something good for a change. It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but it's better." If there's anything I've learned from this, it's that sometimes the people who hurt you aren't trying to. They just don't know how to explain what's happening to them. And it's easy to take that personally until you see the bigger picture. I'm grateful I didn't let that fight be the last conversation we ever had. She still teases me sometimes, says I use too much cologne now. I'll just smile and say, "At least you can smell it, right?" She always laughs. I don't know what the future holds with her condition, but I'm not wasting time being angry anymore. I'm just going to make sure she knows I love her, even when she's convinced the world smells weird. Because the truth is, she doesn't stink. She's just human, and so am I. It's been about 2 years since I last posted about my mom's "you smell bad" comments that turned out to be part of a neurological issue. I wasn't sure I'd ever write another update, but tonight, sitting in my apartment with the window open and the smell of rain drifting in, it just felt right. Life has changed in ways I couldn't have imagined back then. Some of it's hard, some of it's beautiful, but all of it feels real in a way that only comes when you've gone through something that completely resets how you see the people you love. My mom's condition has progressed, not dramatically, but noticeably. After the phantasmia diagnosis, her neurologist kept running tests, and last fall she was officially diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's. It was a gut punch, even though we kind of knew it was coming. She's only 56. For the first few months after the diagnosis, she took it like a champ. She was scared, sure, but she handled it with her usual stubborn humor. When the doctor explained that loss of smell can be one of the first symptoms, she actually laughed and said, "So, all that time nagging Eric about stinking was just my brain short-circuiting?" We all laughed, but there was sadness underneath it. Still, that moment, her being able to joke about it, changed something between us. These days, she still has her personality, her sass, and her warmth, but she moves slower. Some mornings, her hands tremble when she holds her coffee mug. My dad, Robert, retired early so he could be home with her more. He's become her rock. Patient, gentle, always finding new ways to make her laugh. Watching them together has been weirdly healing. Growing up, they argued a lot, but now it's like they've rediscovered each other. I visit at least twice a week now. I usually cook dinner when I'm there, because her sense of smell is mostly gone and her sense of taste is fading too. I make big, flavorful meals, spicy chili, garlic-heavy pasta, anything that makes her feel something. She'll take a bite, smile faintly and say, "I can't taste it, but I can feel the love." It sounds cheesy, but it gets me every time. We've learned to communicate differently. When she's having a rough day, she'll just say, "Smell day," which means she's overwhelmed by phantom scents, or can't smell anything at all. On those days, we watch movies, fold laundry, or just sit outside. Sometimes she'll ask me to describe what I smell: rain, fresh-cut grass, barbecue from a neighbor's yard. And she'll close her eyes and say, "That sounds nice." There's something profoundly humbling about narrating the world for someone who can't experience it the same way anymore. It's taught me patience I didn't know I had. A few months ago, we went through all her old photo albums. She pulled out a picture of me at age 6, covered in mud, holding a frog. She laughed so hard she started crying. Then she said, "I used to tell you that you stank that day too." I said, "Well, at least that time you were right. I never thought we'd be able to joke about any of this, but somehow we can." As for me, I've changed a lot too. I've learned that resentment can melt away when you start seeing people not as the roles they play in your life, mom, dad, son, but as human beings doing the best they can with what they've got. My mom isn't just the woman who drove me crazy about smells. She's a person who's scared, strong, loving, and trying to navigate a brain that doesn't always cooperate. I've also started therapy, partly to process the guilt I carried from our fight, but also to prepare for what's ahead. Parkinson's isn't linear. Some days she's sharp and full of energy, and other days, it's like the world is moving faster than she can keep up with. I don't want to take any of those good days for granted. Last month was her birthday. We threw a small backyard party, just family and a few neighbors. I grilled burgers while my dad played 80s hits on the speaker. When everyone sang happy birthday, my mom looked around and said, "You know, for someone who can't smell a thing, I sure feel surrounded by love." That line stuck with me. After everyone left, I sat with her on the porch. She was tired but peaceful. She took my hand and said, "You used to think I was obsessed with how you smelled. I was, in a way. You were growing up so fast, and every time I hugged you, I wanted to hold on to something familiar. Smell is memory, you know? I think I was scared to lose that. I didn't even know how to respond. I just hugged her and said, 'You'll never lose me, Mom.' Sometimes, I still catch myself checking how I smell before I go over there. Old habits die hard. But now, it's not about insecurity. It's about ritual. A reminder of where this all started, and how far we've come. My dad says that love is just paying attention, and I think he's right. I pay attention now in ways I never did before. To how she moves, what makes her laugh, when she gets quiet, and she pays attention too. Last week, she looked at me while I was making dinner and said, "You look tired, honey. You working too much?" I said, "Maybe a little." She smiled and said, "Go shower and relax. You'll feel better." We both burst out laughing. That one felt like a full circle moment. I don't know how much time we have before things change again. Parkinson's is unpredictable. But I do know this. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm just grateful for the chance to know her like this, flaws and all, and to finally understand that love sometimes looks like frustration, fear, and even misplaced criticism. If I could go back and talk to myself from that first post, the version of me who stormed out of her house, humiliated and furious, I'd tell him, "You're not crazy and you're not dirty. But she's not your enemy either. She's just scared." After the cleanup, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee. It wasn't a line, it wasn't a game. It was just two people who clicked. That first coffee turned into dinner. Then dinner turned into weekends spent cooking together, taking walks, just existing easily. And here's the thing that stood out the most. He never once commented on my appearance like it was something he had a say in. About a month in, I asked him, "Be honest, what do you think of the hair?" He smiled and said, "It's beautiful, but you'd be beautiful no matter what color it was." I know that sounds like a line, but it didn't feel like one. It felt like truth. That was the moment I realized how low the bar had been set for how I expected to be treated. I'd been so used to men treating me like an aesthetic project, something to tweak, evaluate, give feedback on. That genuine neutrality felt radical, but I don't want to make this sound like some fairy tale fix. I still struggle with old insecurities. There are still moments where I catch myself seeking validation, wondering if I look good enough. The difference now is that I notice it. I can stop and say, "That's the old programming talking." Sam and I have been together for almost 9 months now. He's met my parents, my friends, even Tasha, who gave her blessing, which apparently matters to me. The most interesting thing, though, is how my male coworkers reacted once I started dating him. It's like my new boundaries. My willingness to speak up, to not laugh off patronizing jokes, made some of them uncomfortable. One day during a team lunch, a coworker named Brad said, "I still can't get over the red hair. I liked your old look better." And before I could even reply, Sam, who happened to be picking me up, overheard and said, "Weird thing to tell someone who didn't ask." Then he just smiled and handed me my jacket. I think my brain short-circuited for a second. Not because I needed him to defend me. I'm perfectly capable of doing that myself. But because it was such a simple, clean boundary, no anger, no escalation, just calm accountability. That moment crystallized something for me. Confidence doesn't always have to be loud. It can be steady, quiet, sure. It's funny. I used to think hair dye was superficial, just a surface-level thing. But it turned out to be the catalyst for an entire internal renovation. It forced me to see who supported my growth, and who wanted me to stay small. When I first posted here, I felt angry and misunderstood. Now I mostly feel gratitude, because that whole messy chapter taught me how to take up space, unapologetically, And maybe that's what real transformation looks like. Not just changing how you look, but changing who you let comment on it. I know the world isn't going to stop offering opinions. That's fine. People can have their preferences, but I've learned that my body, my hair, my style, none of it is a community project. It belongs to me. Sometimes when I catch my reflection in a shop window, I'll still have a fleeting thought like, would Michael like this? Or would Nate think it's too much? But then I laugh, shake my hair out, and remind myself, the only person who needs to like it is me, and she does. It's been almost 3 years since I first posted about dyeing my hair red, and how men wouldn't stop complaining about it. 2 years since the first update where I'd started dating Sam and rediscovering myself. I wasn't planning to post again. Life got busy in that messy, beautiful way where days blend into each other. Work, family, love, small joys that make the years feel full. But I came across my original post recently, and it hit me like a snapshot of a completely different version of myself. I read it and thought, God, she was trying so hard to prove she didn't need approval, while still looking for it. And now, standing where I am, I can say this. Growth doesn't look like defiance anymore. It looks like peace. I'm 31 now. Sam and I got married last summer. A small ceremony in upstate New York with about 50 people, under a canopy of oak trees. I wore a simple cream dress and let my hair, now back to a warm copper shade, fall naturally down my shoulders. No fancy curls, no extensions, no veil, just me. The day before the wedding, my mom, who'd always been more traditional, said, "Don't you want to do something more classic? Maybe go darker again? You were always so elegant as a brunette." I smiled and said, "Mom, I've spent enough of my life looking like someone else's idea of elegant." She didn't push, but during the ceremony when Sam read his vows, I caught her wiping tears away. Later, she hugged me and whispered, "You look like yourself." That meant more than anything. I think that's the thing. For so long, I was chasing other people's versions of beautiful, appropriate, feminine, professional. But once I stopped, I realized those definitions are just cages disguised as compliments. The funny thing is, my hair isn't even red anymore. Not fully. Anyway, after the wedding, I decided to let it fade and blend back to something closer to my natural shade. It's this soft reddish brown now, and I love it. It feels like a truce between who I was and who I became. But even now, the ghost of that old dynamic still pops up sometimes. A few months ago, my company brought in a new regional director, older guy, early 50s, very corporate dad energy. On my first meeting with him, he said, "I saw your file photo from 2 years ago. You had bright red hair then, right? You were braver back then. It wasn't meant to be cruel. But it was condescending in that way only older men can pull off. A weird mix of nostalgia and judgment." I smiled and said, "No, I'm still brave. I just don't need to announce it with color anymore." He laughed awkwardly, but I could tell it landed. That interaction stuck with me for days, not because it upset me, but because it reminded me how much the world tries to measure women's evolution through aesthetics. Like if we look calmer, softer, or different, we must have settled down, stopped rebelling, given up something fiery inside us. The truth? I'm still fiery. I just burn quieter now. Sam gets that. A few months after our wedding, I joked that maybe I'd dye my hair blue next, just for the chaos. He laughed and said, "Do it if you want, but only if you really want to." That's how he always is. Supportive, not performative. The difference between "I like it" and "I like that you like it" is subtle, but everything. Sometimes I wonder what happened to the people from the first post. Michael, Nate, the coworkers who had so much to say about my choices. I still work with a couple of them. Ironically, most of them have gone gray. The irony isn't lost on me. A while back, I ran into Michael at a coffee shop. It had been years, and I almost didn't recognize him. Same hesitant smile. Though we chatted briefly, polite small talk. He asked if I was still doing the hair experiments. I laughed and said, "Just experimenting with happiness these days." He smiled awkwardly and said, "You seem different, happier, and you know what? I am. Not because life's perfect. It's not. But because I stopped editing myself for palatability." That version of me who stood in a salon 3 years ago, staring at her reflection with red dye dripping down her neck. She wasn't just changing her hair. She was reintroducing herself to the world. Since then, I've learned that transformation doesn't always mean rebellion. Sometimes it's choosing yourself quietly, every day. Even when no one's watching, I've kept a journal through all of this. The first entry after my breakup with Michael said, "I just want to feel like myself again." And my most recent one says, I don't have to find her. I became her. I think about that every time I brush my hair. This hair that's been so many shades of me. So, to the women who messaged me after that first post, who said they were scared to change their hair, or speak up or take up space, I hope you did it anyway. I hope you realized it's not about the color, it's about permission. Because once you give yourself permission to change one thing, you start realizing you can change anything. And that's the most freeing thing in the world. So yeah, maybe the hair isn't red anymore, but the woman who dyed it, she's still glowing. Stories number 23. I accidentally found out my second baby's gender and ruined my own surprise. So this happened a few months ago, but I'm still cringing every time I think about it. To set the scene, I'm 32, married, and currently very pregnant with baby number 2, my husband Ryan, and I already have a 4-year-old son named Mason, a tiny tornado who believes pants are optional and dirt is a food group. When I got pregnant again, we decided to do things differently this time, with Mason. We found out the gender at 20 weeks this time. We both agreed we wanted the big reveal moment. You know, that cinematic delivery room surprise where the doctor announces, "It's a..." and everyone cries. We were so committed to it that I made every nurse, technician, and OB nurse swear they wouldn't slip up. I even had a sticky note on my file that said in all caps, "Parents do not want to know the sex." Ryan was the one who really pushed for it. He said, "You only get a few true surprises in life. Let's save this one." And I agreed. Fast forward to my 20-week anatomy scan. Ryan couldn't come because of work. He's in construction management, and his company was in full chaos mode. So it was just me and the ultrasound tech, this super sweet woman named Katie. We were chatting, laughing, going over measurements. Everything looked great. Now, I'm the kind of person who likes to see everything. I ask too many questions. I squint at the screen trying to make sense of the blobs, and I always want to know exactly what I'm looking at. Katie was like, "Here's the head, here's the spine, here's the heart," and then she goes, "And this part right here confirms the gender. So I'll scroll past that fast for you." Cool. Perfect. Except curiosity is a dangerous thing. Later that night, I was showing the printed ultrasound pictures to my mom, who was visiting for the weekend. She's one of those read every pixel like it's the Zapruder film types. She holds one up, squints, and goes, "Oh, I think I see something." I immediately snatched it away like a raccoon protecting trash. "Don't even start, Mom. I don't want to know." She laughed and said, Fine, but I have a feeling." I threw the envelope in a drawer and tried to forget about it. A week later, I had an OB appointment. My doctor, Dr. Harris, came in, cheerful as always. She glanced at my file and said, "Everything looks great. Baby's measuring perfectly. Strong heartbeat. And then she froze, like literal deer in headlights frozen. I stared at her. She stared at me. The silence stretched on for what felt like an hour. Finally, she said, "I mean, the baby's doing great." It was too late. Ryan wasn't even there, but I could hear his voice in my head screaming, "No." I tried to play it cool, like maybe I didn't notice, but let's be honest, I did. She said she, and not in the generic, "Oh, the baby, she's fine," way. This was a definitive, accidental reveal kind of she. The worst part, she looked so mortified that I didn't even have the heart to say anything, so I just smiled awkwardly and said, "That's great," while internally panicking. When I got to my car, I sat there gripping the steering wheel, trying to process. I had a choice. Either keep it to myself and let Ryan still have his surprise moment, or tell him the truth, except I'm a terrible liar. Like, cartoonishly bad, I picked him up from work later that day. He got in the car, kissed me and said, "How's my mystery baby?" And I swear to God, I blinked wrong. He immediately squinted at me. "What happened?" I tried to play dumb. "What?" "Nothing. Appointment was fine." He leaned in like a detective in an interrogation scene. "Did they tell you something?" "You're acting weird." I cracked in under 10 seconds. "Dr. Harris slipped," he groaned. "No, what did she say?" I told him. "She said she's measuring great." He banged his head gently against the seat. "So, it's a girl?" I said, "Probably, maybe, unless she calls all babies she." He sighed and said, "Babe, you know she doesn't." Then we just sat there. Deflated, we'd been waiting for this beautiful, cinematic moment, and now it was ruined by one stray pronoun. Ryan wasn't mad, not really. He just looked so disappointed. "It's okay," he said after a while. "I still want to be surprised when we meet her. Just, next time, maybe we should wear noise-canceling headphones to appointments." I laughed. But inside, I felt awful. Over the next few weeks, I tried to convince myself maybe Dr. Harris had just misspoken. I analyzed every word, every note in my file, looking for confirmation. Nothing. Then, about a month later, I had my glucose screening appointment. The nurse who drew my blood, this older lady named Sherry, said, "You're carrying high. Definitely looks like a girl." And I swear, it felt like the universe was trolling me. So yeah, the surprise was officially dead. I didn't tell anyone else though. I didn't even tell my mom. I wanted at least one person to still have that delivery room magic. The funny thing is, as the pregnancy went on, I started to get used to the idea. I'd walk through the baby aisles, and my eyes would naturally drift to little dresses, pink blankets, floral swaddles, not because I suddenly became a girly girl, but because something inside me knew. Ryan eventually admitted that he'd started referring to the baby as her in his head too. "Once the cat's out of the bag," he said, "might as well give her pronouns." We didn't tell anyone else though. When people asked, "Are you finding out the gender?" we'd say, "Nope, keeping it a surprise," and exchange guilty glances. Then came the day of delivery. Labor was long and messy because of course it was. At one point, I remember blurting out, "If this baby comes out and it's a boy, I'm suing Dr. Harris." Everyone laughed. Even Dr. Harris, who was there, looking like she wanted to crawl into the floor. And finally, after 17 hours of labor, there she was. They placed her on my chest, and I cried, and not because of the surprise, but because even knowing didn't make the moment any less magical. Seeing her face, hearing her tiny cry, feeling her heartbeat against mine. None of that was spoiled. Ryan cried too. He whispered, "Hi, baby girl," like it was the first time he truly believed it. We named her Nora Grace. Now she's 3 months old. And I laugh every time I think about how I ruined the surprise. Because the truth is, nothing was ruined. I just got to love her a little earlier than planned. Sometimes surprises don't come wrapped in mystery. They come in moments of recognition, like your heart realizing it already knew the ending before your brain caught up. And honestly, that's a kind of magic too. It's been about a year since I originally posted about accidentally finding out my baby's gender, and so much has changed that it honestly feels like a different lifetime. I wasn't even sure if I'd update, but a few people messaged asking if Nora had arrived safely and how things turned out with Dr. Harris and the surprise that wasn't. So, here goes. First of all, motherhood the second time around hits different. With Mason, everything was new and terrifying and felt like walking a tightrope with no safety net. With Nora, I actually got to enjoy the moments more. Not because it was easier, it's not, but because I wasn't constantly waiting for something to go wrong. After the whole pronoun fiasco, I ended up mentioning it casually to Dr. Harris during one of my postpartum checkups. She looked so guilty, like, I swear, her eyes watered a little. She apologized 3 separate times, even though I told her it really wasn't a big deal in the end. She said, "You'd be shocked how often that happens. We try to be careful, but sometimes the brain just short-circuits." I laughed and said, "Well, at least you didn't announce it over the hospital PA." We ended up joking about making a gender-neutral training video for OB staff. She told me she'd started reminding her team before each appointment to say baby instead of he or she, unless they're absolutely certain the parents already know. So at least my little slip-up might have helped other parents keep their surprises intact. Ryan, on the other hand, went through a funny little adjustment period. For months after Nora was born, he'd look at her and say, "I still can't believe I have a daughter." It wasn't disbelief in a bad way, more like quiet awe. He'd hold her tiny hands and whisper things like, "I'm gonna build you a treehouse," or "No guy will ever be good enough for you." Mason, of course, was initially unimpressed. When we brought Nora home, he looked at her, frowned, and said, "She doesn't do anything now, though. They're inseparable." Every morning, he climbs into her crib and says, "Wake up, baby." She thinks he's the funniest person on earth. The sound of her giggling at him while he makes monster noises might genuinely be the best part of my day. The irony is, for months I obsessed over losing that moment, the grand surprise. But the truth? I got 1,000 smaller, better surprises instead. Like the first time Nora laughed, a full belly giggle that startled even her. Or the day she started trying to crawl, failed, face-planted, and just laid there squealing with delight. Or the time Ryan came home from work, covered in sawdust, and she reached for him like he was her favorite person in the world. Those are the surprises that actually matter. Still, I can't lie. Part of me wonders what it would have felt like to hear "It's a girl" for the first time in that delivery room, with no clue beforehand. But then again, Knowing early meant we could bond in this subtle way that might not have happened otherwise. Ryan said once, "It's like we got to know her before she was even born." And I think that's true. A funny side note. My mom still teases me about it. Every time she visits, she says, "See, should have just let me tell you when I saw the ultrasound." I remind her she's the reason I locked the pictures away in the first place. We've also started talking about whether we want a third. The running joke is that if we do, we're not even telling anyone we're pregnant until the baby arrives. Ryan says he'll wear earplugs to every appointment and have them write all the results on sticky notes instead of saying anything aloud. Dr. Harris actually said, "If you get pregnant again, I'm assigning you a code name and redacted files." It's all good-natured teasing now. But I think it says something about how much we've healed from that weird disappointment. It stopped feeling like a ruined surprise and turned into one of those family stories we'll tell forever. Remember when Mommy found out you were a girl because the doctor slipped up? We'll tell Nora someday, and she'll probably roll her eyes, like kids do when they realize their parents existed before them. But I hope she also hears the love in that story, that she was wanted, cherished, and celebrated long before anyone said her name out loud. Sometimes I look at her when she's sleeping, the little curls sticking to her forehead, her chest rising and falling. And I think about how I used to be so worried about losing a moment of magic. And now I realize that the magic was never in the reveal. It was in her. It always was. There's one last funny thing. Though, about 3 weeks ago, I ran into Katie, the ultrasound tech who did that original scan. She was grabbing coffee at the same shop as me. I wasn't sure she'd remember me, but when she saw me, she smiled and said, "You're Nora's mom." I laughed. "You remembered?" she said. "Of course. You were one of the few who actually didn't want to know." I felt so bad when Dr. Harris told me what happened. We chatted for a bit, and I told her how everything turned out fine. How Nora's healthy, happy, and thriving. She looked relieved. Before we said goodbye, she said, "For what it's worth, sometimes knowing doesn't ruin the surprise. It just moves it up a little." And I think that's the perfect way to describe it. It's been almost 5 years since I first wrote about accidentally finding out my baby's gender, and every now and then I still get a message from someone saying they stumbled across the post while pregnant and anxious about something similar. So I figured I'd give one last update, partly because so much has changed, and partly because I think I finally understand what that whole experience taught me. Nora just turned 5, Mason is 9 now. All lanky limbs and endless curiosity, and me? I feel like I've lived several lifetimes since that moment in the doctor's office when one little word, she, flipped everything upside down. It's funny what sticks with you. I don't remember every detail of labor, or what song was playing when we brought Nora home from the hospital, but I remember sitting in that car afterward, feeling like I'd somehow stolen something from myself, like I'd broken my own surprise. I remember Ryan's disappointed sigh and my own guilt pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. But life has this quiet way of turning mistakes into stories. What used to feel like a ruined moment now feels like one of those family myths that everyone laughs about. Mason loves retelling it. He'll say, "Mom found out Nora was a girl by accident because the doctor oopsied." And Nora just rolls her eyes like a tiny teenager and says, "You've told that story 1,000,000 times." What's even funnier is that she's obsessed with gender reveals now. She watches videos online, the balloons, the confetti, the cakes, and she'll ask, "Why didn't you do that for me?" And every time I say, "Because baby, you were supposed to be a surprise," she'll grin and say, "Well, I was a surprise, you just found out early." She's not wrong. About a year ago, we were cleaning out some old boxes, and I found the ultrasound pictures. They were tucked inside an envelope labeled, "Baby number 2, do not open." The irony almost made me snort. Nora wanted to see them, of course. So we sat on the living room floor, surrounded by goldfish cracker crumbs and laundry I hadn't folded, and I showed her those black and white prints. "That's you," I said. She squinted, then gasped dramatically. "I look like an alien," Ryan, who was sitting on the couch, said. "A very cute alien." Then she asked the question I knew would come eventually. "Were you happy when you found out I was a girl?" I didn't even have to think. I was happy from the second I found out you existed. She smiled and hugged me, sticky hands and all, after she went to bed that night. I sat there thinking about how much my definition of surprise has changed. When I was younger, I thought surprises were big, explosive things, the kind you could capture in a single moment. Now I know the real surprises are slow burn ones. They unfold in pieces, the way Nora's laugh sounds like Ryan's. The way Mason still checks on her before bed. The way she draws hearts on every piece of paper she finds. I also found out that Dr. Harris retired last year. I sent her a Christmas card with a photo of both kids, she wrote back. And in her note she said, "It's wonderful to see how that little slip turned into such a happy ending." I kept the card on our fridge for months. Sometimes, when I think back to that day, I realize how much grace matters. Grace for others, for yourself, for the messy way life unfolds back then. I was embarrassed that I cared so much about something so small. But now I get it. It wasn't really about the gender. It was about wanting something to go the way I imagined. A rare, perfect storybook moment, but life rarely gives you storybook moments. It gives you real ones, messy, flawed, human ones that you only understand when you look back years later and see how they stitched themselves into who you became. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. Nora is the most fiercely independent, hilarious, imaginative little person I've ever met. She insists on wearing mismatched socks, says she's going to be a firefighter ballerina, and once told her preschool teacher that her mom works hard but forgets where her phone is a lot. Mason's turned into the best big brother. He teaches her to ride her bike, lets her use his crayons even though she always breaks them, and tells anyone who'll listen that Nora's the boss, but only because she's cute. Ryan still teases me about the spoiled surprise. Every birthday, every holiday, every little gift, he'll smirk and say, "You sure you don't want to find out early?" But there's love in the teasing now, comfort even, because that story, that accident, became part of our family's foundation. A funny, imperfect, beautiful memory we all share. And if I'm being honest, I think it changed me as a person. Before, I was so focused on control. I wanted to plan everything down to the last detail. Now I let things be. I let life surprise me in its own way. Because sometimes the surprises we don't plan, the ones that sneak in sideways, the ones that come out of someone's unguarded slip, are the ones that shape us most. So no, I never got my cinematic "it's a girl" delivery room moment, but I got something quieter and truer. A lifetime of small surprises wrapped up in one little person who, to this day, still surprises me daily, and honestly, that's more than enough. Stories number 24. My wife has a crush on my friend, and I don't know how to respond. I'm 30. Married to my wife Allison, who's 29. And I'm currently navigating a situation I never thought I'd be in. I don't even know where to start, so I'll try to be as straightforward as possible. About a month ago, Allison casually mentioned in passing that she found one of my friends, Eric, 32, married. We've been friends since college. Kind of attractive. She said it so casually that I almost laughed. I mean, we've been married for 5 years. I assumed we were beyond that phase where noticing someone else counts as noteworthy. But the way she said it felt different. It stuck with me. A few days later, I noticed her texting more frequently with Eric. Light-hearted jokes, memes, that kind of flirty but not explicit tone. I brought it up once jokingly. "You guys texting memes again? I hope they're not too spicy." She laughed it off, but I could tell she was guarding something. Then, one evening, we were watching TV. Allison said something like, "Eric's funny. I can't help thinking he's really charming." And that was the first time I felt that creeping, twisting knot in my stomach. Jealousy, fear, and confusion all at once. It wasn't just a casual comment anymore. She wasn't telling me about a coworker or a celebrity crush. She was talking about a real, tangible person I trusted and considered a friend. I didn't react in the moment because I didn't want to start an argument. But that night I lay awake thinking, what am I supposed to do? Do I confront her? Do I talk to Eric? Do I just ignore it and hope it's a harmless crush that passes? Every scenario made my chest tighten. A week later, we had friends over, including Eric and his wife, Jenna. I tried to act normal, smile, laugh, but I could feel Allison's energy around Eric. She was brighter somehow, hanging on his jokes a little too long, leaning in just slightly more than casual conversation warranted after they left. I asked Allison about it directly. "Hey, can we talk about your thing with Eric?" She sighed and said, "It's just a crush. I didn't mean anything by it. I wasn't going to act on it. It's harmless." I don't know if anyone else would have accepted that, but I wanted to. I wanted to trust her, to believe her. I love Allison, I respect her, and she's never given me a reason not to trust her. But there's a difference between wanting to believe and feeling secure. I explained how it made me uncomfortable, that seeing her flirt with a friend of mine, even casually, hurt me. She apologized and said she'd be more careful, but I could tell that she didn't see it as a big deal. She said, "It's not like I'm cheating or anything. I just find him attractive." I tried to process that. I told her, "I get that you find people attractive, but there's a difference between noticing and encouraging it." Since then, I've been hyper-aware whenever Eric's around. I try to monitor my own feelings. 2. Making sure I'm not overreacting, not being controlling. I want to respect Allison's autonomy, but at the same time, I feel like this crush has changed the dynamic in our marriage. We used to joke about our friends without worry. Now I notice when she laughs at Eric's jokes. I notice when she texts him after work. And it's not that I don't trust her. It's that I don't trust my ability to stop thinking about it. I've been debating a few options, have a serious, sit-down conversation about boundaries. What's okay and what's not. Step back from Eric as a friend, at least temporarily, to preserve my marriage. Accept that crushes happen and try to work through my own insecurities. None of these feel perfect. I don't want to tell Allison she can't talk to someone, but I also don't want to feel like I'm competing for her attention. And the thought of cutting off Eric, someone I've known for over a decade, feels extreme. Even if it might be the simplest solution in the short term. Part of me thinks I should just trust Allison completely and let this blow over. Another part of me thinks ignoring it will only make it worse, because underlying tension will grow into resentment. I've also thought about talking to Eric directly, not accusing him of anything, but just letting him know I'm aware and would appreciate some boundaries. But then I worry about how that could ruin a long-standing friendship. I guess the core of my struggle is that I feel torn between love, trust, and self-preservation. I don't want to overreact, but I also don't want to suppress my feelings and let resentment fester. I've been lurking online, reading similar stories, and I see a pattern. People tend to suggest honest communication and boundary setting, but it's terrifying to actually do that in real life. I keep replaying all the what-ifs in my head, and sometimes I wonder if I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I don't want to lose Allison. I don't want to ruin my friendship with Eric. I don't want my marriage to feel like a negotiation about feelings and attractions. So Reddit, I guess my question is, how do I respond? How do I navigate this situation without pushing Allison away, without damaging my friendship, and without letting my own insecurities take control? I feel stuck, and I don't want to feel like I'm overreacting or underreacting. I want to do the right thing, whatever that is. But I honestly have no clue what the right thing looks like. It's been about 6 months since I first posted about Allison having a crush on Eric. And honestly, it's been complicated. I thought that setting boundaries and having a direct conversation would make things simpler. But life, of course, decided to prove me wrong. After my initial post, Allison and I sat down for a serious talk. I tried to explain exactly how her comments and behavior with Eric were affecting me. The jealousy, the unease, the way it made me question our trust. She listened carefully, nodded, and apologized. She promised to be more conscious of her interactions and to keep things strictly friendly. For a while, it seemed like we were on the same page. She stopped texting him late at night and kept conversations about work or mundane topics. I felt a bit of relief, like maybe the tension would ease, but it didn't completely go away. We recently had a group weekend with Eric and Jenna at a cabin in the mountains. It was supposed to be a fun, low-key retreat. Board games, hiking, cooking together. I was nervous about how I'd feel around Allison and Eric, but I thought I could handle it. And for the first day, everything was fine. Allison and Eric joked, but it was within the boundaries we'd discussed. Then on the second night, I noticed a shift. They were sitting next to each other on the couch while the rest of us played a card game. Allison laughed at something Eric said. I don't even remember the joke. And leaned slightly closer to him. Not dramatically, not physically inappropriate, but just enough to make me notice. I felt that same knot in my stomach from months ago, and suddenly the weekend felt tense. Later, when we were all making dinner, Allison brushed past Eric and murmured something under her breath that made him chuckle. I caught the corner of her smile and realized I was still hyper-aware, still on edge, still struggling to reconcile my trust with my feelings. That night, after everyone went to bed, I pulled Allison aside. I can't lie. I'm still feeling uncomfortable, I said. She sighed, but this time, her reaction was different. She admitted she enjoyed Eric's company more than she expected, and that part of her crush hadn't fully faded. She swore she wouldn't act on it, but that she wanted to be honest about her feelings. I had to pause. I wanted to feel anger, to feel jealousy, but instead I just felt tired. Tired of walking this fine line between trust and insecurity. We talked for a long time. Hours, really. about boundaries, intentions, and how to maintain trust. We agreed on some new rules. No private texting late at night, no sitting alone together for long periods. And if either of us felt uncomfortable, we would speak up immediately instead of letting resentment build. Since then, things have been better. Not perfect, but better. I've realized that part of my anxiety wasn't just about Allison's feelings. It was about my own insecurities and assumptions. I had to face the fact that I was trying to control something I couldn't control. How she feels? I can only control my response and set boundaries for what's acceptable. Eric has also adjusted. He's been aware of the tension and has consciously kept things professional and friendly. Jenna noticed some of the earlier tension too, and we had a frank, somewhat awkward conversation about respecting marriage boundaries. I think she appreciated our honesty. I still feel moments of jealousy, especially when they're joking together. But I've learned to pause and process rather than immediately react. I remind myself that noticing attraction is normal, but acting on it is what would cross the line. What surprised me the most is that this whole situation has forced Allison and me to communicate more deeply than ever before. We talk about our feelings, our boundaries, and our insecurities in ways we never did before. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's also strengthening our marriage in ways I didn't anticipate. I've also started to work on my own insecurities. I see a therapist about it now, partly because of this situation, and partly because it's been illuminating to understand why certain things trigger such intense reactions in me. I'm learning to separate my emotions from my assumptions, and to communicate without judgment. We still see Eric and Jenna occasionally, and it's mostly fine. I'm not saying the jealousy disappears entirely. It doesn't. But I feel more equipped to handle it. I've realized that trust is ongoing and needs to be actively nurtured. In short, the crush hasn't gone away entirely, but the dynamic is under control. Allison has been open and honest, and I've been working on myself, setting boundaries, and staying aware of my own reactions. It's not easy, but I think we're in a better place than we were 6 months ago. If I had to give advice to someone in a similar situation, it would be communicate openly, set clear boundaries, and do the hard work of examining your own feelings. Trust can survive crushes, but only if honesty and boundaries guide the relationship. And even though this has been stressful, I think it's made Allison and me stronger as a couple. I'm still wary, still cautious, but I also feel like we've grown in ways I didn't expect. It's been about 2 years since my last update about Allison having a crush on Eric, and honestly, so much has changed that it almost feels like a completely different chapter of life. Looking back, I can see how much this situation tested not just my marriage, but my understanding of trust, boundaries, and even friendship first. The crush itself isn't a huge issue anymore. Allison never acted on it, and over time, the intensity naturally faded. What started as noticeable attraction turned into a casual, almost neutral acknowledgement. She'll occasionally mention that Eric is funny, or that he has a great sense of humor, but it's never lingering or flirtatious. And I've noticed that her energy toward him is just friendly now, the same way it is toward anyone we care about. The biggest change, honestly, has been in me. I used to get this knot in my stomach anytime she mentioned him, anytime they joked together, or even when I saw them texting. I realized that my own insecurities were fueling a lot of the stress. Therapy helped a ton. I learned to differentiate between healthy awareness and obsessive control. I learned that trust isn't just about what your partner does. It's about how you manage your own reactions. Over the past year, our marriage has felt stronger. We talk openly about feelings, even uncomfortable ones, and that's made us closer. Allison is more aware of my boundaries without feeling restricted, and I've become better at expressing myself without judgment or blame. Eric and Jenna remain our friends too, and the dynamic is back to what it was before the crush. We hang out occasionally, go to dinners, or grab drinks. I've noticed that Jenna's awareness helped stabilize things. She's assertive in her own way, and her presence reminds all of us where boundaries lie. The funny thing is, now I can even joke about the crush with all of them, and everyone laughs. It's a little surreal, considering how tense things were at one point. Mason and Nora have also grown a lot during this time, and seeing Allison as a mom adds a layer of respect and admiration that I didn't fully appreciate before. When I think about the crush, I realize that my anxiety often came from comparing imagined scenarios to reality. In reality, Allison is fully committed to our family, and she shows it every day. That consistency matters far more than fleeting attractions. There have been small reminders along the way. Moments when Allison and I would notice each other's eyes lingering in ways that triggered old insecurities. But now I catch myself, and remember, feelings are natural, but actions define trust. We don't act on fleeting crushes, and that has always been the line. A milestone moment happened last summer. We all went camping with Eric and Jenna and their kids. One night, we sat around the fire, and Allison and I shared a quiet moment away from the group. I told her, I feel like we survived a storm and came out stronger. She smiled and said, I think we did. It wasn't easy, but we talked, we listened, and we stayed honest. I wouldn't trade that for anything. It struck me that this experience, uncomfortable, messy, emotional, had actually been a growth opportunity. It forced honesty, vulnerability, and self-reflection, and in the end, those things fortified our marriage more than any easy drama-free years could have. I've also realized that friendships can survive this kind of strain if everyone communicates openly and respects boundaries. Eric and I are closer than ever. Our friendship is built on years of shared history, and this whole ordeal, while stressful, tested and ultimately strengthened that bond. Jenna and Allison are friends too, and seeing them navigate life as adults with humor and honesty has been inspiring. In terms of advice for anyone in a similar situation, don't ignore your feelings, but don't overreact. Communicate openly, set boundaries, and reflect on your own triggers. Crushes happen. They're natural. What matters is how you act, how you protect your marriage, and how you respect your partner's autonomy. Looking back, I'm grateful for how everything unfolded. The crush could have destroyed friendships and shaken our marriage, but instead it became a catalyst for growth. It forced uncomfortable conversations, honesty, and self-awareness. Things that are often hard to come by in day-to-day life. And now, when I see Allison laughing with Eric or texting him a funny meme, I don't panic. I smile, knowing that what we've built is stronger than any passing attraction. It's a strange feeling. Relief mixed with pride. Relief that our marriage is intact, and pride that we handled something difficult with maturity and love. Sometimes I catch myself thinking about that first moment, the one that started all of this, and I laugh. That initial panic, the jealousy, the fear. It all seems so dramatic in hindsight, but at the time it felt earth-shattering, and now, it's just another story in the tapestry of our lives. A story that ended well because of communication, boundaries, and mutual respect. I don't know if crushes ever truly disappear, but I've learned that they don't have to threaten anything if handled with honesty. I'm married to Allison. We have a happy family. Our friendships are intact, and life goes on. That's enough, and honestly, I think we're stronger for it.